Recording in progress.
Second. Brian, you co-host? No, you're not, right? Back. Let's try that.
There, yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Okay, let's try asking Tim Michelle if he's here now.
Yeah, Tim Michelle, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I was in outer space for like 6 minutes.
No, that's fine. Can you vote after Walter, please?
Sure.
And right now, can you identify yourself and say you're present?
Tim Michelle, committee member present.
Okay.
Moving to Ryan.
All right, Ryan, now we're ready for you. If you could unmute and show us your lovely face. Okay, thank you.
Can
Okay.
everyone see me okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Chuck, oh, there you go. Okay, so we're here for my annual RDA for the annual road paving program for 2025. As you see here and in the memo that we had sent, we have roughly 11 roads this year. Only about 4 of which are in or around a wetland area. You have Avalon, Luanis Drive, Oak Ridge, and if you want to scroll to the top a little bit there, Chuck, I'll just mention this briefly. I threw on Grove Street here, which the DPW is going to be doing some skim coating, just some overlay work there. So I just threw this on here or there. That way that we can have it on the RDA for this year. The standard practice as we normally do. We normally meet out here with Chuck before before we do construction with the contractor. We establish all the areas of where the erosion control, silt sacks, and things of that nature will be put in. I'll just mention that on every single road that we do, regardless of its area near a wetland, we put in silt sacks on the catch basins to collect any debris. These roads are all reclaims this year, so that means we're pulverizing the roads, regrading them, and then going and doing binder and then top course of pavement. No, as of now, no mill and overlays. We may have a mill and overlay if things change with what we find out in the field, but as of right now, this is the worst case scenario. I will mention that we will have some previous road work that we didn't finish under the other contract starting back up this spring. We'll contact Chuck when we go out there, but their roads there are not really in the area except for a little piece of Summer Avenue. So we're doing Summer Avenue and Woburn Street from the previous year, but we'll let Chuck know when we get those started. And then we'll pick up all the old erosion control from the last project. I feel like we've done this so many times. Is there any questions that anyone has or any members that would like me to go into detail about what we do, what the process is?
Okay. Are there any questions? In the commission, Martha?
I understand that the erosion control on Dana hasn't been picked up from last year yet. Do
That's
you know
correct.
anything about that?
Yes, I do. So we ended up running really close to the end of the season with the erosion control out there. We didn't finish the contract. The contractor is still under contract with the town of Reading. Again, that's why I was mentioning we still have 2 roads that we have to finish under that. So they'll be in, they'll remove all of that erosion control, do any restoration that they need to do, along with pulling up any tree protection that we do have remaining out there. So.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Chuck's gonna go with you to see where the erosion control goes in, right?
Correct. Every year with all the roads that we have that are in the areas that are affected, Chuck takes a ride out with us with the contractor and we establish where the erosion control goes down in any areas that he feels that needs to be extended outside of the areas we usually accommodate as well. So.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I may have asked this last time, and it has to do with curbs. I don't know where on these streets there are actually curbs, but in addition to providing a little bit of safety to pedestrians and to some extent driving, curbs are also important because they keep overland flow from just sheet flowing into adjacent properties, and the curbs will help to keep stormwater directing storm flow into catch basins where they'll get some level of primary treatment at least before they're discharging into a water body. So things like trash and whatnot are gonna get collected and somewhat treated. Are there any plans to improve curbs in town, to install them where there aren't any? From both a safety standpoint and a wetland standpoint?
Generally speaking, not under the road paving program. We do install some curbing here and there as part of maybe some small repairs that we do or extensions of granite curb that might have some missing gaps. But the expense of curbing, in particular granite curbing, is astronomical as it's compared to our road paving program. So it's generally not something that we would add on. Now, to that comment, there's an area where we have substantial erosion and things of that nature, we would address it with either with curbing and or like a bit berm, a bit conch berm, which is the asphalt berm. I don't believe any of these roads that we have here are getting any installation of those at all.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it. I have one further question. We had heard that there was going to be a road paved by a utility. So I'm assuming that is not covered under this RDA, right?
That is correct. If you want to, yep, you're right in that right area on Prescott Street.
Yep.
So the section between Summer Avenue and West Street, excuse me, they have agreed to pave that road, that section of road, because it was under a moratorium. I believe that's the only section that they're going to be doing. Everything else we're picking up under our road paving contract.
And as far as you know, that will be coming to us under a separate application?
I believe that one is not jurisdictional, so probably not.
Okay.
Prescott Street, yeah, as you can see, it's kind of down in the middle of your bottom screen. It's just that section from Summer Avenue to West, so it's not jurisdictional. So you probably wouldn't see that.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from anybody online? If so, use the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and do the raise hand function. I'll give you a few seconds to figure that out. I'm not seeing anything.
Seeing none.
Is there anybody in the room who has any comments, questions? Right behind me? Okay. So seeing none, then can I have a motion for a negative determination?
I move for a negative determination for this road paving project.
Walter Talbot seconds. Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tim?
Getting there.
Okay.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowen in favor. Okay, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
See you
hold on,
next year.
Ryan.
Oh,
I just want to, any conditions? Do you want to talk about conditions? Or are you satisfied with the current?
The things they talked about were the things that I
Just wanna
was
make sure.
about.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
things I didn't ask you anyway.
sounds like we're good, Ryan.
All right.
Okay, we'll be in contact, Chuck. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next one is 153 Belmont Street. I'll read the blurb while you people in. Open the public hearing on request for determination filed by Patrick Byrne pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes the construction of a 12-foot by 35-foot deck off the side of the existing four-season sunroom. All of the work is within a 100-foot buffer zone. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year. Assessors map 60, lot 11, DEP file 20. There's an extra O in there, an extra 0 in there. Is that right?
It's not, yeah, so our file number, sure, it's 2005-3.
Okay, that's what I thought. So 2025-4.
Three. Oh, no, oh, you're sorry, oh, we're down on the next one, sorry. You're right, I was reading this.
2025-4.
Yeah.
Having said that.
Sure, so I can't recognize any names up here. Is someone here?
We're here.
Oh, sure. Can you introduce yourself for the record and talk to us about your project while I pull it up on the screen?
Sure. Sean Seifert,
Denise Seifert.
Royal Homeowners.
Okay, thank you.
We are looking to add a deck on the back of our house. There's not currently one. We have a sunroom with sliders and stairs going down to the yard. So we're looking to just remove the stairs and add a deck along the back of the house.
Are you bringing up the plan or no?
Sure.
Okay, I didn't know if you would. do that.
And
So while he's struggling with modern technology,
go. Here it comes.
do you have anything to add once he brings it up, or does that cover it?
That pretty much covers
it, yeah.
Yeah.
So we did a site visit Monday. Martha, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, we got there late because of a miscommunication, but, Brian and Chuck, you met with the contractor, is
Yes,
that right? And, confirmed where you thought the wetland line was and where it shows on here. I think the concern was that the wetland line bows in near the corner of the deck where the diagonal line is pointing to that corner. And may be not quite 35 feet away from the wetland line for that far corner of the deck. I don't remember other details
okay,
of what we saw.
I can step in now. I
Okay,
just wanted you to go first. We actually measured from the stake for the corner of the proposed deck. Going out, looking for some kind of a wetland indicator. Chuck found a little bit of skunk cabbage, so we measured to the skunk cabbage. It's not 100% accurate, but, you know, good enough. And it was just about 35 feet. I'll wait till after we have questions and everything, but at this point, it's right on the edge. Okay. There were some other things that we saw that we had questions about. For example, I mean, the good news is a lot of the structures that are there are not permanent. The bird feeders, the rack, the frame for the hammock, which I didn't recognize, he had to tell me. I thought it was part of a boat. So anyway, so those are temporary, which is okay because they are structures and they are relatively close. And the wood pile in particular is an issue. So I think those were the main points. It was a pretty straightforward visit. We did meet with the contractor briefly. Chuck, do you want to throw a last detail or two in there?
Yeah, and I apologize to make this correction, but so we did check the wetland line out and we wanted to go with the first visible breaking slope. And so that would put the edge of your project, 33 feet away instead of 35 feet away. And we talked to the contractor and they said that they typically design these decks with a cantilevered support. And he said that he would address that and send us plans. We haven't received those plans, but I do think that that's the solution to this situation. So maybe you could ask him, because if you get a favorable determination tonight, we need those plans prior to issuing.
Yeah, I can probably send them to, have him send, because I know he sent them to me and said that they had to move that in.
Okay.
To adjust.
And the reason is because in the regulations, it says 35 feet, no structure, but it does allow an additional 3 feet if something is cantilevered. And given the correction Chuck correctly did for me, then that would make up the difference.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, he had indicated to me that that's what they would do, they would move the posts in.
Yeah, he said he was going to go talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that they did update the plan, so I can certainly follow up with him first thing in the morning to ensure that he sends those over.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the commission or any questions from the commission? Anything?
Tim?
I don't see a hand or anything from Tim.
I'm gonna take this down. Hold on a second and see.
Okay, so the commission doesn't have any more questions. Is there anybody online who has questions or comments?
Jeff M.
Jeff, can you identify yourself, please? And
Hold on 1 second.
Chuck has to give you privileges, but then you can unmute yourself.
Okay, Jeff.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm the neighbor, one of the neighbors at 99 Charles Street. Just had a very quick question. What is the general timeline for this construction? Nothing specific, just general.
Last name.
It would most likely be done. We're in beginning of April now, April to early May.
And Jeff, can you, for the record, give us your last name, please?
Of course, Mullen, Mullen.
Thank you. Did you hear the answer?
Yeah, April to early May. That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else online? No. Anybody in the room? Questions, comments? You don't tap my shoulder. I'm gonna stop turning around. Okay. So in that case, I guess we can go ahead with a motion. This is an RDA, so it'll be a motion for a negative determination. Somebody want to make a motion, please?
Tony, I'll move for a negative determination.
Walter Talbot seconds. Walter Talbot votes in favor.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Whatever Lucas in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Any conditions?
Yes, conditions cantilevering the deck for sure.
Yep.
And moving the wood pile.
Oh, that the previous owners,
Yeah, the wood looks really old.
Yeah.
But if you can move it out of the proximity to the wetland.
That's fine, yeah,
Sure.
you were just about that.
But I agree, the wood looks really
Yeah.
old. Any other conditions? Do you have any conditions?
No.
Okay. Okay, then, I guess we're all set with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, good luck with your project.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now we're at 8. Yes, 885.
Yeah.
So before you start, everyone who's here from 885, who's part of the team that's presenting this project, just raise a hand so I can let you in. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, so I'll read the blurb while that's happening. Open a public hearing on a notice of intent filed by Primrose School Franchising Company pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and or the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. The applicant proposes construction of a 2-story childcare facility and associated structures consisting of a paved parking lot, walkways, retaining wall, play yard, stormwater infrastructure. Portions of the work are within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass., and on the Conservation Division page under the project by year. Assessors map 28, lot 133, DEP file number 270-0796. Okay, is everybody available who needs?
Josh Klein and Andrew. Go to Andrew.
So Andrew, can you walk us through the project, please?
Absolutely, yes. For the record, this is Andrew Tebow, project wetland scientist with Goddard Consulting, and I also have Josh Klein and Adam Drake with me from Stonefield Engineering, the project engineers on the call. So what I will do is I will run the commission through existing conditions, our wetland delineation, and then I will kick it over to the Stonefield team to describe the project. If I'm able to share my screen, actually, I can pull up the existing conditions plan and begin to walk through it.
Yep, yeah.
Looks like I have permission. Is that coming up okay for you guys?
Oh, yeah, there it is. You can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. So as you had stated, the subject parcel is 885 Main Street. This is about a 1.94 acre parcel. It's bordered by single family houses on all sides. And this parcel is currently developed with a single family house, walkway, wood sheds, patio, lawn, and pool. So in November of last year, Goddard was retained to conduct a full wetland delineation out there. There is a mapped wetland to the north of the property that we see here. So we were able to conduct this delineation in the fall, long before winter ever came. And what we found out there is pretty extensive deciduous wooded swamp. It's located off-site through many of the properties behind Main Street. It comes onto the property through a large lobe that we see here. It's at the toe of some well-defined slopes, as we can see on the existing conditions plan. And as of actually today, we were able to have our site walk with the commission. Myself, Adam Drake of Stonefield, and 3 members of the commission came. The flags were still up for us in the field, and so we took a good look at the delineation. With the location of the wetlands, it puts the 100-foot buffer zone about halfway through the yard, the pool, and portions of the single-family house. And we have the 25-foot and the 35-foot shown here as well. So the commission received a notice of intent for this on March 12th, proposing to redevelop this into a childcare facility. Before I kick this over to the Stonefield team to describe the project, I wanted to note that we did receive our DEP file number. We got 2070796, and there was no technical comments from DEP. And this morning we were able to have our site walk. So I'm going to pull up the proposed conditions plan and kick it over to Stonefield to describe the project. If you guys want to steal the screen share from me, feel free.
That'd be great. Thanks, Andrew. Good evening, Josh Klein, Stonefield Engineering Design, licensed professional engineer, partner with the firm. I'm just going to switch over and take control of the screen.
By all means.
All right, perfect. So I'm just kind of turning over to our landscape plan. Andrew did a nice job describing the site. Orientation is the same as the survey that was previously up. We have Main Street on the left-hand side or to the west of the page. The existing family home, kind of backyard, pool, sheds, and everything kind of surrounded the middle of the site, kind of near where the building in one of the play areas sits today. So the applicant is proposing a 2-story daycare. The building is roughly about 7,000 square feet. There's 40 parking spaces, 2 play areas on either side. One of the keys is, having good accessibility for the play areas. So you kind of see them both on the left and the right, and kind of with the doors and the classrooms individually going out. The wetland, kind of as shown before, is in that upper right-hand corner. I'm just kind of highlighting on my screen, kind of the delineation is the dash double dot line, and then we have the 25 no touch line. There are no improvements or disturbance within the 25-foot setback, and then I'm also now showing the 35-foot just off of it. So we will be kind of grading and replanting within the 35-foot setback, but no structures associated with it. The site is a little bit unique, both from a lot geometry, but I think more kind of for the commission when you start looking at the topography of the land. There's kind of quite a high area, kind of along where the Francis Drive backs up into the site.
Josh, can I interrupt you for a second? Can you mark out the 100-foot buffer zone, and explain the extent that's the extent of the commission's jurisdiction?
Yeah, so I will just highlighting it. Does cut through the building. I'll do my best job. Okay. So that red line there is the 100-foot line that I just highlighted. But you can kind of see where that topography comes into effect. A couple highlights on the proposed improvement, more privy to the commission. We did complete test pits on site. We're proposing an underground infiltration system. The outlet is proposed outside of the 35-foot setback. So again, no structures being proposed. Today, all the water goes to the wetlands. So we're providing pre-treatment, water quality, and then discharging to the wetland area. The project proposes over 330 plants. Over 74 trees are proposed as part of the project. A majority of those are being planted within the buffer area as part of the replacement requirements. We did go out and have the surveyor flag the trees in accordance with the tree removal bylaw, and then I've showed the calculations as well on the plans. That's kind of overall the improvements in a nutshell, kind of more focused in on the 100-foot. I'm happy to kind of go into anything in more detail or answer any questions about the proposed improvements.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, commission, have questions?
I do.
I got it. You have to do the commission first, and then Chuck, and we'll go online and then the vote. Thank you.
I have a bunch, but I'm happy to let somebody else go first.
You can go first, get us started.
All right, just have to find the right pages here, sorry. Let's just start with the play area that's mostly within the 100-foot zone. I notice it has a retaining wall. And the slope goes now from 120 at one corner down to 104 on the other side. Is that going to be a 16-foot retaining wall?
No, it would not be. So the kind of intent is to balance the retaining walls on either side of the site. So there's a retaining wall on the back of the site and a retaining wall kind of closer to the wetland, kind of that right-hand turn that I just kind of, or corner that I highlighted. So I believe the one in the back is around 6 to 8 feet, and the one in the closer to the wetland will be in that 6 foot range. I can double check, but I believe about 6 feet.
There's a 4-foot wall.
Where does it say there's a 4-foot wall?
Oh, at least on my drawing.
Yeah, you're on a different page than
Yeah.
me. You're on the landscaping
Yeah.
page, maybe?
This,
Let's see. So it looks like it's about kind of get more exact numbers if that's the question. So 8 feet at the corner that I've just highlighted right here, closer to 7 feet at this corner here. At the back, it ranges, I think about 9 feet here, and kind of works its way down to about 2 to 3 feet here.
yeah,
I'm very concerned about that much retaining wall. My husband always looks at retaining walls that high and says, what happens when the fence fails and the retaining wall is still there and it's a 9-foot drop for some small child? So splitting that into terraces in some way so that there's not a full 9-foot drop is not necessarily a conservation issue, but very much a safety issue. I'm also concerned on that same plan that you have the water outlet in the corner, kind of upper right of that play area. Over on the right side of this page.
The small triangle.
Keep going, the next one. The other one on the right.
This is the only, oh, correct. There is a small outfall here.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we really want to direct all the water flow the same way it currently is going and direct it toward the wetland rather than off onto the neighbor's property. I'd like to maintain as much water flow into the wetland as possible. So I'd love to see that water treated so that you're not dumping trash and whatnot into the wetland, but have it aimed downhill toward the wetland as much as possible. Keep the water flow going where we want it to be.
Yeah, I think we definitely can angle it. Everything goes to the wetland, current location, or even if we put it on the other side, it's also going to be a very small amount. It's really, that's an under drain system for the turf section. So the turf section that's used allows water to infiltrate directly through the turf, and then it has a stone base. So it does allow water to actually infiltrate into the ground. The reason we have the under drain actually on this side is due to the retaining wall. We just don't want kind of water sitting behind the wall. You can see on the left-hand side, we don't have any perforated under drain system. That's because one of the really nice benefits with the turf system that we use is it acts as an infiltration system. So it allows us to recharge water. One of the kind of 2 items, one of them kind of came up in your question. I do want to highlight our intent is to clean up any trash kind of within the wetland area. I know during the site walk today, that was something that discussed. So that would be part of our mitigation strategy as well. And we also are proposing an outdoor observation area. One of the benefits is that we have this natural area behind the site. So the applicant is proposing kind of an outdoor area. It'll include, they'll have to kind of the final design, but picnic tables or benches or an area where, staff members or supervise, children either with their parents or with staff members would be able to go and sit out and kind of look into the natural area that's being protected. So I did want to highlight those two mitigation efforts.
And that area you're talking about also looks like it has a retaining wall with the slope going lower and lower as you go along that retaining wall.
So the entire edge or perimeter of the proposed improvements include a fence. And then correct, there is a small area that includes a retaining wall, but this will be a safe fall protection fence. We have worked on other daycares, both for this applicant as well as others that include, grade changes, and we've, very safely been able to incorporate fall protection and fences just to kind of ensure that everyone's safe on site.
Okay, the plot I'm looking at, which is C5, it looks to me like the fence in the play yard is marked with circles and lines between the circles. Is the fence you're talking about marked with X's and dashes between the X's?
Correct. There are different types of fences on site. So the fence that goes around the play area and the fences interior to the play area that break it up are a different material than the fall protection fence that goes around the kind of perimeter of the site.
Okay. Now, you've got this retaining wall near Francis Drive side of the property, and doing a little bit of grading toward that retaining wall. Right now, all that water flows across that sloped play yard toward the wetland. Now you've got a retaining wall next to a play yard. How is that water going to get to the wetland? From
Got it. So the
Francis Drive side.
I'm going to highlight. So this is the retaining wall. I think, just for the commission, it is just for reference outside, but I know stormwater is a key to why we're here tonight. We're proposing a swale along the top of the retaining wall. So kind of water will be diverted around the retaining wall into the wetland. I think we're happy to kind of, in talking with this change here, is make the swale in this area a little bit more defined, but the intent is, all of this water ultimately makes its down to the wetland. And then again, a large portion of this area here today actually kind of makes its down to a low point, kind of closer towards Main Street. So we do have an inlet that will pick up water and kind of bring it, through the site back to the wetland. So the intent is all the water on site, we're matching drainage patterns. This water today goes to the wetland area. We've kind of designed the site to kind of navigate the proposed changes, but still ensure that water is going to the correct place.
You mentioned picking up the litter, the beer cans, golf balls, things like that, in the, wetland area and some of the trees area. Okay, and we just noted that in the property near there, 877 Main Street has a lot of trash in the back corner of that property when we were on our site visit.
Yeah, so we can't, we can't enter onto someone else's property. I think we would just have to be careful, how any kind of condition would be worded. The applicant, Primrose Schools, I mean, this is a very high-end product. They do a really nice job. If you've seen any of their daycares across the state. So our intent is to clean things up. We want the wetland area to look nice. We want the landscaping to look nice. The observation area was a great idea, kind of in our initial meeting with Chuck, for people to look out. So we're definitely happy to clean that area up and make sure for, the foreseeable future, it remains clean and it remains protected.
Mm-hmm. I'm also now looking at the lighting plan. And it looks like some of the lighting from the parking lot area leaks over toward the wetland more than I would like to see. Yeah. If you look in that area, you've got some lighting that's 0.5, 0.4, etc. Not 0.
Yeah, we could definitely, take a look. I mean, 0.5 is really insignificant. When you start to, the human eye can, you really start to get into values 1, 2, 3, is where we kind of start to be able to tell lighting levels. So definitely something the commission, wants us to take a look at. I mean, all the lighting here is downward facing, it's shielded. The intent was to try to contain the lighting in the parking areas as much as possible and minimize any impact to anyone surrounding the site.
As a follow-up to that, could you discuss the extent to which, or find out the extent to which the lighting plan may meet dark sky requirements?
Yeah, I'll have to see. So the current lighting specified, it is all 3K temperature. Meridia is LSI Meridia light fixtures are a dark sky approved fixture. So I'd have to confirm if the exact spec that we're seeing here, obviously going through the planning process, that'll be something we'll work through with the board. But right now it is a dark sky approved fixture. I don't think the current spec that's being shown, but it really comes down to a temperature.
Thank you.
Okay, Plan C9. You've got 2 trees marked with tree protection fences around them. One's a deciduous and one's an evergreen. Are we on
Correct.
Plan C9 right now? Okay,
Yes, we
I don't know how you're gonna protect that tree if the land is gonna be regraded right around that tree. I'm looking at the deciduous one just to start with.
Yeah, I think that the deciduous one, it looks like we are filling slightly in that area. The good news is we have a little room to work with, whether we brought the grades up a little bit. So our goal is to save both of those trees. If we aren't able to, we would replace them. Right now we currently meet the replacement plan, again, proposing 74 trees on site. So our intent is to save them, obviously through construction. If we have to replace them, that would be an option as well.
Okay, I'm just concerned for both of those trees. The tree protection fence is fine, but if you're altering the grade around the tree trunk and burying the side of the tree, we're gonna have a rotten tree that's gonna die in 5 years. So making sure that you adjust that grading, especially around the deciduous tree, but also some around the evergreen, so that we have a longer expected lifespan of those trees, I would like to see. Maybe, yeah, that I didn't have any notes on. I warned you, you could let somebody else go first.
I'm fine. What I wanted to talk.
Okay, I think I don't have notes on that. So what about this one? Aha. Okay, planting plan. You have a bunch of things outside the 100-foot zone that are not natives, and we have no control over that. But some of the things inside the 100-foot, you've chosen a variety rather than the true native. Like I'm looking at the 12 East Emerald Feather Eastern Red Cedars. And with this present composition of the commission, we've been preferring true natives whenever we can have them. And you're getting 37 regular Eastern Red Cedars. Can we get the rest of them to also be Eastern Red Cedar and not Emerald Feather?
Yeah, I definitely think we're open to it. We may look to do something else. I think one of the goals, and you see it throughout the landscape plan, is trying to create a little bit of diversity, variety, and a little bit of interest. But we have no issue, kind of making a switch like that.
Yeah, there's several cultivars versus true species. And the cultivars are always suspicious because are they really adaptable to our native environment?
Fortunately, most of them are outside the 100-foot.
Oh, okay. I've not correlated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can take a look. I know we are, we did follow the kind of recommended native plant list, but I think we can, from the town, but we can definitely kind of focus that in a little bit more. We have no issue with that.
Yeah.
And variety is okay. Our preference is for an emphasis on true natives.
Right. And you have very kindly listed which ones in the remarks are the recommended native plants. And I checked the ones that are outside the 100-foot are the ones that are the not necessarily native plants. I'm also a little concerned about the spacing of your spruce trees. You've got them in clumps of 3 pretty close together. Can you tell me how far apart their trunks actually are intended to be?
Let's see, we can do, I mean, plan view wise, I would say they look to be about 8 feet.
Because that seems pretty close together once they get big. You know, that's fine when they're 12 feet tall, but when they're 20 or 30 feet tall, you're going to have a lot of crowding on the inside there. And we've run into that with somebody else who had big, tall spruce trees they wanted to take down because they'd been planted too close together in the first place. I think that was my last comment.
You sure?
I can always come back with another, but for now, that's it.
Anybody else? Tony?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. You talked about cleaning up a lot of the trash that's there now. From what I've seen of daycare facilities that are adjacent and abutting wetland areas, there's a tendency for a lot of trash to get generated that blows over, whether it's arts and crafts projects or balls or a whole variety of things. I looked through your O&M plan and I didn't see a very robust discussion of sort of long-term maintenance of any trash that might blow over into the wetland. Is that something you might be able to elaborate on in the written application? The plan?
Yeah, again, I don't think we have an issue if wanting adding or kind of ensuring that there's a condition. The goal is, I mean, I can't speak to I guess the references you have, but Primrose runs a very high-end operation. They're not going to want to see any type of trash, anything like that on site, let alone within such a visible wetland area for them. So the intent is to keep the site clean, both the parking areas, the wetland, the playground. They tend not to, Primrose, this isn't like a home daycare operation where kids are running around outside with arts and crafts projects, and they have the sites are professionally maintained both from a landscape standpoint, professional trash. They have facilities managers that are going to manage the property and ensure everything's clean. But long term, keeping the wetland area and buffers clean is definitely one of our goals as well.
Okay, and thank you for that. Your application is very robust and there's a lot of information. And in the short amount of time that I've had it, I haven't had a chance to read all, I don't know how many hundreds of pages there are. Could you talk a little bit more about your stormwater management, pre-treatment options, treatment options before it gets discharged into the wetland? You talked a little bit about the topography and the surface flow, but could you talk a little bit more about treatment technologies that you're considering?
So we're proposing right now a chambered underground infiltration system. It does have an isolator row. Pre-treatment is met through offline catch basins with hood and sumps. So all the stormwater is collected in the catch basins, their hood and sumps in each of those, and it ultimately is discharged to, they kind of refer to it as the header row or the isolator row. The isolator row is a kind of single row of the chamber system wrapped in filter fabric, kind of designed to kind of catch any and all debris, TSS, suspended solids in the water. From there, it overflows into the rest of the chamber system where water is kind of captured and then slowly percolates or infiltrates into the ground. And then we have a outlet control device. So during the larger storm events, water overflows through the outlet control device. You can kind of see that structure right here, and then ultimately discharges to the wetland.
And what's the maximum precipitation event this is designed for?
So we reviewed the 210, 25, and 100 year storm event.
And in terms of inches, do you know what those are these days?
I'd have to pull, I want it, 100 years around, we'll say 8 to 10 inches, depending on what NOAA Atlas calculated for us. But I can definitely, if you want me to pull the exact number, I can grab it. It's right in our report. But we did, application has been submitted. It's under review with the engineer. And we're designing in accordance with both town and state requirements.
Okay, and could you talk about the use of any synthetic materials that might be used on the outside, whether a rubberized play surface or shredded tires or something like that? And the extent to which those might migrate into the collection system or into the wetland itself?
So the the collection system again has that pre-treatment, so those hood and sumps, as well as that isolator row. So anything that kind of makes its way through, I mean, floatables, suspended solids, things like that would be captured in the stormwater system.
Yeah, I was thinking
I mean,
more like, little bits and pieces of rubberized stuff.
Yeah, the turf is a complete turf section, so it's not kind of, you still see it, but I always say kind of the old school turf that had those small rubber balls or little beads in it.
Right.
That's not this type of turf. So this is kind of a pure turf section. There's no kind of little rubber beads that pop up. We're not using any kind of rubber mulch or anything like that, or it'll be kind of natural wood mulch throughout the site. So I think maybe those were the two highlights, I think I would say.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just to back up, did you mention if there was like a synthetic grass or grass surface or anything like that?
Correct. The play areas are a turf.
Okay.
So that's a synthetic grass.
Just one question.
I'm sorry, turf or synthetic turf? I missed that.
Synthetic turf.
Would you happen to know the PFAS composition of that material?
I wouldn't off the top of my head. It's definitely something we can look at. I know the project from an environmental standpoint will comply with any local and state requirements.
Go ahead, John.
So I just want to make sure that you're saying there is infill or there's not.
There's not a rubber bead. So there is we have a detail. It's a lot of materials in a short amount of time. We were very impressed. This commission, got us in front so quickly. So usually it takes some time. So we appreciate you guys getting us here. Just thought it'd be easier to pull up the section. Adam, you might message me if you know what page the detail's on. Let's see. Well, I will have to find it in, let's see, C14.
So usually grass fibers are held up by infill, and I'm wondering if that's, and I'm not mentioning whether I'm looking for chrome rubber, cork, or anything else, sand, whatever you're going to use. I'm just wondering if you're doing that. I'm concerned about the microplastics, and if there's a filter in the chambers as they are discharged into the wetland to pick that up. And Tony was worried about, or at least mentioned, PFAS.
Well, there's a couple. Oh,
So
sorry.
hold on. Have you run into 6 ppd quinone? Have you measured for that? Do you have any response to keeping that out of the wetlands also?
Sorry, one more. What was the last item?
It's called 6 ppd quinone.
Can you spell that, Chuck?
No, I can't.
QUINO.
Thank you.
Yeah, is there somewhere, I just want to make sure I'm referencing the requirement. So is there a location in the town bylaw that
No, find that in the
to
bylaw.
show what I
It's,
need?
all about turf and how it's becoming highlighted throughout Massachusetts and things that are being brought up and what to be concerned about. So that particular reference has been known to kill rainbow trout. And so the concern is with that and with that discharge into this wetland. And one of my other questions for Andrew was I wanted to know when he reviewed the wetland, if he reviewed it knowing that there was a potential vernal pool north and a potential and certified vernal pool to the south. And so those concerns with this discharge, and I think the commission can, not only do I think, I can show you the section, the commission can extend their jurisdictional setbacks based on the severity and the amount of protection that they feel is needed for this area. So that's within the section that talks about the 25-foot ZND. So
Got it.
that
Well,
those questions are important. And just to finalize my thoughts on the turf, turf again is basically a hazardous waste. And I would like to see your operation and maintenance plan cover disposal. And I don't know if you're going to do like where's it going or what you're going to do or how that's going to happen. But usually we're talking 10 years, what happens to the old turf and, you know, what you're going to bring in. And then of course, maintenance is there's a whole area around maintenance, how to keep the crumb rubber or whatever you're using for infill inside the area where it's supposed to be. I think that, you know, it would also be interesting to know what you're going to use, because I know crumb rubber is, a lot of parents wouldn't like their kids putting that in their mouths. So again, I didn't read the entire report yet, but it's something that I'm concerned about. That's all I'm.
yeah, I'll try to answer. I mean, there's a lot of questions packed in there, but we appreciate it. We appreciate the concern. And I think you hit on it really well at the end. I mean, this is a daycare. They have kids that are going to be on site. The intention is they want a product and they want an end product that's safe, for the children, safe for the staff, safe for the community. And they operate, across the state and other communities nearby across the country. So that is their number one priority. I just pulled up, and I know, again, you guys haven't had time to review everything. So this is the artificial turf detail. It is an X-grass, is the spec. It does have a 3/4 inch deep X-grass infill. So they use EnviroFill is their infill product. That's what they use for their child care. We're happy to kind of provide any additional information on it as well. I think, operation and maintenance, you hit on a lot of keys there. I think we're happy to add some additional items in there to talk about, how we maintain the turf, how we dispose of the turf, how we're going to make sure in the the longevity that this wetland's going to remain protected and remain safe, and ensure that's kind of protected in the order of conditions. In terms of environmental testing, anything of that nature, I mean, again, the client is going to follow any and all requirements, both at a state and local level. Given the previous use, I'm not aware of any potential environmental, issues associated, but again, they will follow any requirement there. So I think it's some great feedback. I think, our goal is, to ensure that there's proper measures in place, such as the order of conditions, as well as a operations and maintenance plan to make sure the commission, remains comfortable in the future as this daycare continues to operate.
Thank you. Do you have anything more at this point? Back to you, Tony.
Yeah, I do have one more question about stormwater, and have you modeled the extent to which water levels in those wetlands may change?
We haven't modeled the wetland as a basin in itself, but the project does decrease both volume and peak runoff to the wetland. So we wouldn't expect any negative impact or adverse impact to the wetland area.
Well, if there's a decrease in flow, would that result in an adverse impact to the wetland?
In my opinion, it wouldn't. I mean, this wetland, you can see it today. I mean, it has a small area of standing water. Kind of any of the adjustments that made on site aren't going to have a negative impact. There's also runoff, from other areas associated with the sites around it. So, in incorporating the stormwater management plan and applying both the state as well as the local, stormwater practices. Again, phosphorus removal is met through the infiltration system. We don't feel there'll be any adverse impact to the wetland area.
Anything else?
That's it for tonight.
Yes, for tonight. Walter?
If I'm interpreting everything correctly, it looks like from your parking area, you're draining into the Storm Tech system. Am I correct?
Correct. The entire parking area is collected. It's pre-treated through the catch basins, deep sumps and hoods, and then it enters the underground system.
When you say pre-treated, would you please define?
So there are a bunch of different pre-treatment options that Mass DEP recommends, as well as other agencies. So what we're utilizing is a deep sump and hood catch basin. So the catch basin itself is 4 feet deeper than the outlet that goes there. So it allows water to kind of settle, suspended solids, floatables, and things like that can settle out. And then as water moves through it, there is a hood device that allows water to kind of continue through to the stormwater system.
So you're taking care of particulate. What about greases and oils?
So there is an infiltrator row, but the stormwater system, a hood and sump is designed to provide some relief when we talk about floatables. So oils and things of that nature. I mean, this is a traditional parking lot. It's not a gas station. There's not going to be any work happening, but we do understand, things happen. And that's really where the hood comes into a factor. So similar to how an oil water separator works, having the kind of the different levels and areas for floatables to be trapped, that's how the hood operates. So the hood would prevent, any types of grease or oils or things that float. By having the hood, it prevents it from moving through the system.
But Josh, why isn't that described as an oil and grease separator instead of just
Thank you.
a deep sump catch basin?
So we're not proposing oil water separators as part of the pre-treatment. We're doing a hood and sump catch basin. So there's 2 components. There's the sump and the hood.
No, I get it. I'm just wondering, it seemed like you were describing this as an oil and grease separator, and I just wanted to make sure we all understood there was a difference.
Correct. I was just giving a comparison. The hood, operates in a similar fashion. Like, the intent of the oil and water separators to have kind of those floatables float to the top and not be able to continue through the compartments, where the hood's job is a very similar fashion. It's to kind of prevent those floatables from continuing through and out the outlet pipe.
So if I can jump in on this, is it as effective as a separator? You said it's simple.
I don't think I would say when you purely are looking at, grease or oil separation, I don't think so. But when we look at, providing stormwater pre-treatment, it's an accepted and wide used, practice throughout the state. So it does a great job from a pre-treatment standpoint.
Walter?
He answered the question.
Anything else?
So it's good.
Tim, do you have anything? I'm good.
No, I'm
Okay.
here, taking it all in.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to know. I have a couple of things. The first one is, from today's site visit, we saw how much grading was going to be required. And seeing it in person is more impactful than seeing it on a plan. So how close to the furthest extent of the grading, how far away is erosion control going to be?
So there are going to be areas where the silt fence and the erosion control measures would be set right around the 25-foot mark.
So how will you prevent accidental overwhelming of the erosion control when fill is dumped or pushed around? We have seen that, and recently.
Yeah, I mean, something we have implemented, and I think we'd be happy to do. I think, the site will disturb over an acre, so a SWIP will be required. It will have to be monitored in accordance with the EPA requirements. But I do understand at a day-to-day construction level, we could do a kind of a fence-lined silt fence, or in some other regions, a lot of times you refer to super silt fence along the wetland line. And there also is a construction fence and a tree fence proposed along that line. So there will be kind of two layers of protection proposed along the wetland, along the 25-foot
So I'll
buffer.
leave it to you to design whatever it is, but bear in mind that we don't want any overwhelming of whatever erosion control you put in place. Okay,
Perfect.
my next question has to do with that tree protection fence you were talking about. So what material is that? What's it look like?
Pull up. So it's the tree protection fence is kind of more of your typical orange construction fencing. So it's kind of really giving that warning to the contractor.
Okay, so you have a line of this fence towards the bottom of the slope. How far away will that protection be from the trees that are going to be maintained?
There's not many existing trees along the 25-foot line. So, in this case, there would be, you can kind of see there's one here. A lot of them are, 10, 15 feet away. So it does vary across the site. But there's not a lot of trees that are kind of right on that line. And, I
Okay,
think
not a lot, but there are some, right?
correct. And they would be kind of wrapped with the tree protection fence.
All right, and we'd like that protection to be further enough away from the trunk, out to the drip line or what have you, that it actually protects the roots.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Obviously they'll, I think for a lot of the rough grading and initial work, we can definitely create a little bit more room. And then as, in certain instances, as they have to get closer, we can move it in and then set it right back just to make sure we're protecting everything.
Okay, can you bring up a view of the parking lot? Okay, so screen north, there's that little bump out area of the parking lot. What is the function of that? Why couldn't that be straight across?
Be straight across. So the 8 additional spaces up here is to kind of provide additional parking.
Right.
We anticipate it'll probably be more of kind of the employee area. One of the nice things about the site is it has a nice long kind of sidewalk and a lot of parking available for parents to utilize when they're dropping their children. But we anticipate this really to be mostly for employees.
Right, so to be more detailed, I'm talking about the part of that extra parking that juts out closer to the wetland. What is the point of that small bump out? Couldn't that be?
Yeah, on a larger scale, we call it like a hammerhead. On a smaller scale, it's really gives a little bit more room to move the tires and kind of help people navigate. So it just helps prevent. We see a lot of people, they rub the curbs, they hit the curbs, they knock the curbs over. So it gives someone a little bit more room when they back out to kind of safely navigate.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that because I'm not sure that extra convenience is worth the extra paving and the extra closeness to the wetlands, but I'll put that aside for now.
Okay.
In your narrative, you have a section on the sequence of this. And in it, you are showing that the curbside sediment control is not going to be installed until the site prep is mostly done. Why wouldn't you install the curbside control sooner?
Side control. Is it on a plan or was that submitted like in a narrative in the application?
Best I remember is the narrative.
I'd have to double check it. I will say, and I'm sure your general conditions cover this, but all erosion control features that are required, will be put out there. I think we typically see, a conservation agent, I'm sure Chuck does it, would come out and inspect things. If that is the case, we can check that in the narrative, but the intent is any measures that need to be out there day one, obviously, if there's no inlets, we're not going to put the inlet filters in until they're installed, but perimeter controls 100% should be out there and be inspected before there's any movement on site.
Yeah, I will say I didn't look to see where the nearest storm drains were or anything, but obviously construction equipment does bring material in and out. Let's see, when we were there, I asked about getting the trees marked with ribbons, both the ones going to be taken down and the ones, at least along the edge, that are going to be maintained, just so we can be sure that we fully understand and agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think what we can do is probably in this case, because we have the stakes out there, we can kind of flag the trees to remain.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, that'd be helpful. In the past, we've occasionally seen discrepancies, so. Okay, so I'm agreeing with Tony. We've had a lot of questions. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more. My case in particular, I need more time to understand the stormwater management. Also, I think it would behoove us to bring in a third-party expert to review that. So I would like to ask the commission if they would agree with that. If so, kind of a motion to retain a third-party reviewer for the stormwater plan.
Can I ask what level of review the town or DEP gives to this?
Typically, this has come up before, so Ryan always appreciates the extra care and thought put into it by a third-party review. He said that. He says they can dedicate more time to it than he can. Okay. And he's, we typically use a certain third-party reviewer and this person. It's great. So I think that's his kind of standing statement.
So given that, can I have a motion to ask Chuck to retain a third-party reviewer?
I move to retain a third-party reviewer for stormwater.
Yeah.
Walter Talbot seconds. Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Larry Wilakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay, before we move on, are there any further questions from the commission before we open it to the public? Hearing none, let's start online first. Are there any people online who have questions? If so, please raise your hand using the reaction button in the lower right of your screen. I'm giving a few seconds. Oh, Donna Reed.
I don't see that.
Oh, no, that's Chuck's cursor.
Oh, that's cursor. I was gonna say the color was different. I didn't know we had a TV station.
So, Mr. Chairman, do we have these people go first? Those people are comfortable.
Hang on.
It's a little warm.
So now we can open up internally. First of all, can you keep your comments relatively brief? There's a lot of you. I don't know if you're all gonna talk, but a fair number.
Every single one of us.
So can we keep them brief? If somebody else makes the same point before you do, please don't feel like you have to repeat it. And when you get called on, can you identify yourself for the record, first name, last name, and address? Okay,
And make sure you sign the sheet.
I think we got most everybody.
Especially if you make a comment.
Where's the sheet?
Yeah.
Can I see that sheet?
I signed.
Hey, Brian.
I'll sign it twice.
So, okay, can we start going this way? Chuck,
Just make sure you're not.
What's going on here?
I do not know.
Just hit not now, I think.
Oh, dear.
Make sure it doesn't. Yeah.
You want to go not now as soon as possible.
Oh, you get the wrong one? Okay, yeah, go that one. Not now? Is everyone agreeing on not now?
Wait a second.
Can I get a motion?
Okay, can we start this way and go around? Yes, sir.
John Arena, 26 Francis Drive. 2 questions. Reference was made to the 100-foot marker. What is the import of that relative to this body's work? I have a follow-up question as well.
Okay, 100-foot is the jurisdiction that we have over wetlands. There are different distances for different things that we protect. River is 200 feet, vernal pool is 100 feet, for example.
In the earlier meeting tonight, the earlier session, reference was made to 3,500 setback.
35 feet is the no disturb zone, so you have 100 feet. The first 25 feet, is no disturb, the next 10 feet, so the 35 is a no structure. So you can't have a structure within 35 feet, and you can't do anything within 25 feet without permitting and what have you.
Grading and improvements, et cetera, not constitute structure.
It is alteration, it's not a structure. Structures, even a fence is a structure, a parking lot is a structure. Just grading, no, that's not a structure.
My second question is, am I correct that this is being permitted under Dover amendment?
Yes, the childcare in the zoning,
But not for conservation, that's a plan.
right, that's a
The
zone.
reason I ask is it goes to whether or not this body has more jurisdiction or not, and that is, it may be beside the point, but it's a formal application to made in that regard.
I don't know, as Chuck pointed out, that's not something that we actually,
There's a planning meeting in April. I don't know the date, but there is.
Thank you.
Just one other point, the 100-foot is by regulation and the 25 and 35-foot zones are by town bylaw.
Thank you.
thanks, Sonny. Anybody else?
Yes, too.
Oh, I'm just going around the fickle finger of fate. Yes, sir.
Stephen Mays, 59 Francis Drive. When they were talking about the stormwater runoff, what's going to happen, or does that system that's designed going to pick up all of the winter treatments for the driveways, the parking lots, what's going to be dripping off the vehicles and the sidewalks, if that's all being pumped back, or not pumped, but directed back into the wetlands?
Do one of you gents want to answer that question? They were asking about winter treatment runoffs, how they're handled.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer it. I'm sure it's in the general conditions. It's in our operation maintenance manual as well, but we would not use any salt, within the jurisdictional area. So we'd use any environmental friendly magnesium chloride, et cetera. So we wouldn't use, typical rock salt or anything like that in a jurisdictional area. And I think we'd be happy to, in this case, ensure that none of that, would be used on site that would make its way to the wetland.
We want to document that as a condition, obviously. Can I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, can I ask about
Yeah, and
that?
that's a state requirement as well.
When you say no salt, you're meaning no NaCl salt? Because you then right away said you will use magnesium chloride.
Yeah, we would use any kind of product that's an approved product from Mass DEP, in jurisdictional area. So I can get the exact kind of chemical composition, but it wouldn't be rock salt. So it'd be an environmentally friendly product.
The town of Reading have any?
And we'll be back. This is not the first meeting, so obviously we're taking note of any questions, comments, et cetera, and we can definitely always come back with additional info.
Okay, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
I was gonna say, does the town of Reading have different requirements than the state when it comes to salt and all that?
Name and address, please.
Oh, Andrew Donahue, 35 Duck Road.
Thank you. I don't know the answer to that. Do you? Offhand?
So we do have some restrictions on salt, and it's a general condition. So we would have that at the end. So
So it'd be one of the conditions.
Right.
Okay.
I guess the follow-up question is, how do we know what they're using? I mean, I wouldn't babysit them. Who polices the fact that they're using a certain product versus another product? Or they just go to Home Depot because they're in a hurry and they got to get the driveway.
Yeah, that's a fine question. There's always a question of how these things are enforced.
Right.
I don't have a good answer for that.
I think it's. I was gonna say. I mean, it is a tough question, right? Where is the town going to be responsible to hire 100 people to go and check every neighbor and every site? But
right.
There is a building department. There's a zoning department. What we've found in the past in other applications. I mean, an inquiry could be made to the conservation agent. I mean, Chuck's on here, so it's. It is something that can be reported and can be investigated by a town. But again, the applicant is looking to be a good neighbor. This is a long-term, They're making a very large investment, here. So, our goal is to comply with any order of conditions.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, it is hard to catch them after we issue if there's anyone to catch. It's hard to police after the fact, after we issue the order of conditions. But they have a stormwater structure here that would have a log, and, generally the applicant puts that log together for whatever review it's getting and the measurement of solids that are in there. And you could add a line that says, what kind of de-icing methods are happening between these months. So like I said, generally it's made up by the applicant or modified.
Any other follow-up?
I guess I've been a Reading resident since 1978, so I think I've got a.
Paid your dues?
Yeah, I paid my dues. A little bit of a romantic. Some of us would rather Reading be the way it was 30 years ago as opposed to today. What's happened at that woods at the end of our street on Duck Road is we've got quite the little wildlife situation there. We've got deers and foxes and coyotes, and we've got a great bird population that would make any Audubon society be like, wow, that's pretty cool. What's going to happen to all that? I mean, I kind of like seeing the deer walking around in my backyard, and I'm selfish. What happens when these guys sort of blow the whole thing up?
Yeah, I have deer, coyotes up in my backyard too, and I like that. So all I can say is we go according to the regulations. The regulations, we protect habitats. The idea is that indirectly protecting habitats protects wildlife.
Right.
But we don't have jurisdiction over any of the animals you named directly. So will this affect, patterns of the wildlife walking around?
Definitely, right.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah.
To what extent, I don't know. But that's again, not our jurisdiction. We are wetlands protection.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep.
You just throw some food out and they'll come in.
That's what she does for me. She just throws a little food on the ground and like I'm running.
Anyway, next.
Stephen L. Mays, 59 Francis Drive. So not to kind of say the same thing he did, but with the vernal pool that's so close to the property, is there any environmental impact on that and the animals that are so close to this, like new construction?
So vernal pool, the buffer that we talked about before is 100 feet. My understanding is that neither one of those two, the confirmed one, certified one, or the potential one is within 100 feet. So we don't have jurisdiction. Chuck's line of questioning was concerned about something affecting it anyway. That is something we'll be paying attention to. But as far as direct jurisdiction, we don't have it unless something from here we can show would affect it, then we can extend.
Let me just correct. I didn't.
That's what he does.
I didn't just to finish. I didn't have a chance to ask Andrew if he reviewed when he did the wetland line, if he saw any indicators of vernal pool activity. We're in vernal pool season. My point about one being upstream and downstream is that you should check. I mean, it seems like there might be something there. But I also mentioned that the commission has the ability to pull out that section of their regulations that allows them to extend their reach from 25 feet as much as they want to protect certain areas. Doesn't need to be certified vernal pool. So that's a big question in my mind. How much review went into that? And so I haven't been able to ask that question.
I'm happy to speak to that right now. This is Andrew with Goddard. I do want to note that the certified vernal pool in question offsite to the east is about 125 feet away from the site, and the one offsite to the north is about 200. So when we conduct wetland delineations, we are always looking for the potential for vernal pool habitat. If we see anything, typically we're looking for areas that can pond up to, potential depths to support vernal pool habitat, or areas adjacent that do. So the vernal or the wetland that's on our property, the vernal pool is mapped within it about 200 feet to the north, and it's at the lowest elevation within that wetland. And that area actually does have the capability to pond up. Once you get onto our subject parcel, it's a bit higher in elevation. The system actually drains down gradient towards that mapped vernal pool. And when we were there in the fall, there was no signs of surface water at all. We didn't find any evidence of staining or ponded water, algae lines, things that would show that it ponds up to significant depths. And then actually today we had a site walk that was conducted for a very helpful time for this. We just had all of our spring snow melt, the groundwater has risen, vernal pool season is kicking off. So this is sort of the highest hydro period when we're looking for these things. And only the lowest elevations of our wetland on our site here had just a little bit of surface saturation, no ponding. So there's nothing on our site that suggests that there's any capability of supporting vernal pool habitat.
Well, I do want to point out that while it has rained recently, it's been severely dry for 7 months or so. So you have to bear that in mind too. Okay, thank you.
So Andrew, so in my mind, there's a difference between a vernal pool and vernal pool habitat. So if the pool is down gradient from this, I don't know, this area of transition, isn't that likely to be the habitat area for whatever's using the vernal pool? But beyond that, have you had a chance? I know that you didn't review and flag the wetland and vernal pool season. Have you had a chance to come to a professional conclusion about this? And if not, would you go back and take a look, and so the commission can feel satisfied that you looked at it specifically for a vernal pool and you found no indicators?
In addition to hydrology, biological indicators, that's force and egg masses.
I would have no problem at all investigating this site in greater detail. Of course, when the full delineation and data collection was done, that would have been in November of last year. So it's certainly valuable for us to go out there and take a look now. We can take some updated photos of water levels, the potential for any standing, and we can issue an opinion letter as part of a supplemental submittal.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
I just want.
Sorry, you get cut off.
Yeah, I just want to point out so that people understand what Tony was saying. Chorusing means hearing the foam falling, like the sprinklers or the wood ducks.
Wood frogs.
Wood frogs.
They sound like ducks.
Sound like ducks, wood frogs that sound like ducks. So that would be an indicator that there might be a a vernal pool in the area. Egg masses, I think, was self-explanatory.
And those are more for salamanders.
What's that?
Yes.
No. Okay, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. Lori McKenna, 34 Duck Road. There's a reason why developers have been unsuccessful with this property before, and it's because it's wetlands and they should be protected. And I understand that you have a responsibility to review this, but these 25-foot and 35-foot buffer zones that are being considered are reckless for this piece of property. We as a community are pretty united in this. We're in the process of retaining an attorney that will represent our collective opinion and future discussions about this matter. We talked about the vernal pool. It is a certified vernal pool. It has been a long-standing part of the fabric of Reading. In fact, for a while, it was part of the curriculum at Reading High School to have students come out and assess what was happening at this vernal pool. And to think that a development of this significance, this magnitude, wouldn't have an impact on this vernal pool is foolish. And I would like to understand further how this area would be protected. We've talked about trash, we've talked about oil, we've talked about all sorts of debridement that will flow this way. And this is precious area. Further down the slope is the wetlands that we've been talking about. I think Josh said himself that they haven't actually measured the water here. And for many years, there has been suspicion that this is also a vernal pool. And I would ask that this be assessed, maybe not by Andrew, but by a third party to see if this is in fact a vernal pool before we move forward and discuss this any further. We would also, as a community, like to request, in addition to a stormwater assessment, a complete environmental impact assessment, because the effect of a project of this magnitude extends well beyond the abutters into the areas of all of Francis Drive, Main Street, Lawrence, Hampshire, Duck Road. A full environmental assessment is not unreasonable given the significant scope of this project. Within this study, we would want to see the environmental impact of traffic and congestion, impact of 40 cars, impact of the environmental effects of cars that pick up and drop off. This is a daycare, a for-profit commercial building daycare, not a school. Idling cars, deliveries, trash and recycling, access routes for emergency vehicles, and the additional concrete that will come with establishing those roads. And more specifics on the water drainage plan. So we've heard some questions and uncertainties about that already tonight. And we've seen from other developments that these tanks, these drainage systems fail. And so we are putting our wetlands at risk, and we are concerned about the impact of both stormwater and all of these toxins that we're going to be allowed to drip and to flow into our protected wetlands. Andy, you talked about the animal impact. So the developer states in their proposal that they don't expect a large impact on wildlife, but what primary research has been done to validate this? We see this wildlife. We see them traveling from the vernal pool to this other area, this other wetland. What's going to happen? So finally, also a look at this artificial lighting. So we talked about that very briefly. But, this is parking. This is after hours building and lighting security motion sensors on the premises. So how disruptive is this going to be to our neighbors, but also to the protected wildlife in this area? And I don't know if that's part of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, but it speaks to the magnitude of the environmental impact of this irresponsible plan. So I think after we have an environmental impact study, that would include your request for, a look at the water drainage system, then we can have a more serious discussion as a community about this proposal. That's it.
Thank you.
Josh or Andrew, are you over any of the MEPR thresholds?
No, a project of this scale is well below anything like that.
What kind of thresholds?
Massachusetts
MEPA.
Environmental Policy Act.
Okay.
Yeah, you typically see that with, million square foot shopping malls, airports, very, very large scaled projects.
So you asked a lot of questions. As you've seen already from the deliberations, we have a lot of questions too. They've already agreed to go back and address a number of things, so this will be continued tonight. It's not like.
Yeah, I see in my notes, Josh said that they're not aware of the environmental impact of this, but they'll keep tabs on it. Let's know that before we say yes to this.
I don't believe that I stated that. So we have submitted a stormwater report. We have submitted that. It is public record. Andrew Goddard Associates has submitted a full application with a lot of material. So, we understand the concern. This is the first meeting. We appreciate the feedback. Our goal isn't to come tonight and say, and pretend like we're here to get feedback from the commission. We're here to get feedback from the public. Our goal is to have a great application for both the community, for the applicant, for the future, children of the daycare. So we understand this is not a one night event. We have a planning board that will be going in front of, I think some of the questions noted there, traffic, things like that are, part of our Mass DOT application as well as the planning board. So we appreciate the feedback. We're definitely taking notes and listening.
Yeah, you said you wanted to be a good neighbor. So I think part of being that good neighbor is
To the chair.
I think part of being a good neighbor would be doing a complete environmental impact assessment of this project.
So we don't have to decide on that tonight.
Okay.
It's a perfectly valid suggestion. Like I said, it's going to be continued, so we do have time to dwell on it. So let us dwell on it.
Thank you.
You can follow through on your plans to get an attorney.
Yeah, some of those questions were definitely for the planning board, like the traffic study and things like that. Out of, some sort of environmental impact study, habitat evaluation, something like that. That's more where we live and the vernal pool.
Yeah.
And the area that we're talking about is just within that 100-foot. But we are concerned about the impact on the habitat, the animals that were discussed tonight. They generally live right there in your backyard, and they're not going to move. It's really the notable ones or rare species that would be pushed out, pushed on, and then they wouldn't be able to reproduce. So that's why we're really concerned about the vernal pool.
Yeah.
But you made a lot of good points and I appreciate it. Along with the commission.
Through the chair, if I may address one more comment, just there was a couple of questions about where the vernal pool evaluation will be coming from. I did want to clarify both to the concerned neighbors and the commission that Goddard has wildlife biologists on staff that solely do this work. So although I am a wetland scientist who flags out the wetlands, work that comes from evaluating wildlife habitat, potential for any vernal pool habitat, that will come from a wildlife biologist. I think that's important detail to make.
Thank you. Good point. Gonna move on.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I want to take off my commissioner hat and ask as a citizen of Reading. You kept on saying we.
Mhm.
Who is we?
Back here too.
Okay,
It's the residents. We've been through this before, right? So we have a collective community of,
I'm curious.
Yeah.
yeah,
think
we
it's
have a
folks, huh?
collective community of.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. Yes.
Christine Curtin, 55 Francis Drive. I don't know if this is necessarily a Conservation Commission issue, but I'm looking for elevations of, I've seen flat plans, but I've not seen what we're gonna be looking at day to day for the two-story
So
building.
you're looking for a 3D model?
I'm looking for an elevation of the 9-foot, what we're gonna be looking at from Francis Drive.
That we look at bird's eye
Okay,
site plans.
so when does that get?
Unless you feel like some way knowing what the architecturals look like would help you.
Well, that's my second question, is that what I'm looking at is I looked up a number of Primrose sites. Some were cute little cottagey looking, and others were large scale industrial buildings that were farther away from any residential areas. I want to know what we're looking at.
Yeah, you'll see that in the planning board. Like, it's up to the commission if they want to see that, and that would be something we usually don't look at. But you'll see those through the planning board, and it's quite possible that on the planning site, some of this information is already up. I'm not sure. I don't know if Josh knows anything about that. Did you submit your application to the planning board?
Yes, an application has been filed.
There's nothing on the site that I was able to find that
Okay.
showed a true elevation.
Yeah,
That's all. For example.
yeah, I'm not aware of when they post things.
I mean, would a shading plan be of interest to see if there's a high, if there's a high structure, the extent to which it's gonna significantly block down sunlight and possibly.
Yeah, that's the only thing I mean, just like the lights, I mean, I think that makes, that's at least something we can connect.
So is that something we should ask for the next meeting? I don't know how fast it can happen, but
Is there a shading plan available?
So a shading plan wouldn't be a typical document. I mean, as part of the planning board application, isometric views, so 3D renderings as well as 2D elevations have been shown. I defer to the chair, if you want us to share any documents. We don't have an architect here tonight. This seems a little bit more planning related. We will be coming back to the commission. Maybe it makes sense for us to get some feedback at the planning level, absorb some of the feedback we're getting from the public tonight, and let the architecture really be presented by, a licensed architect at that time.
all right, so we can do it that way as long as you're prepared for us at the next meeting, possibly deciding that we would like a shading plan or anything like that. So that way you have a chance to present things at the planning board and we still reserve the right to ask for more.
Yeah, 100%. What I think would be nice is that, we caught some good comments tonight. So, there's going to be a peer reviewer. So, we'd love to come back in front of the commission once we get some planning feedback. We get all the town staff feedback. We get the peer reviewer feedback, so we can really have a nice productive evening.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else you want to bring up?
Do we already have the elevations online or are they available to us? Have they been drawn up?
They have been submitted, what we heard. We don't know when planning board posts. So I would say check back, check this space.
Or reach out. You could reach out to the planning board for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to, I mean, it's public record, so you can definitely go down to the town and pull it. I don't know when the town of Reading actually posts things on their website, but we have submitted them, so they're at the town, they're available for planning. I'm happy to, speak with the applicant too, if, my contact information is on the plan, it's on our website. If anyone does want to reach out to me, I'm sure the applicant will give me the approval. I just texted him. I can share a link of what we submitted as well. So, but everything is public record at the town.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Do you have anything, sir?
Matt Frukowski, 911 Main Street. To the point about stormwater and sort of knock-on effects of this project, I have a culvert that is in my yard that's very poorly documented from the town, and there's like a pool behind my neighbors at 917 that fills, and when we get significant rain, my whole backyard is underwater, and sometimes my garage is. And what I've heard from the town is that the reason that it now pools and floods the yard is because where that culvert terminates on the opposite side of Main Street is also protected wetlands that I guess at some point either need to be dredged or something like that. It's just not enough for the water to drain down. So I'm always living right on the brink of that sort of area of this wetlands basically infiltrating, coming into my yard. Are they gonna be looking at that? I noticed that culvert's not noted on any of the plans. And further to that point is, what is my recourse if this project goes through and all of a sudden my house is flooded?
Okay, so this hearing is focused on this property and this project. We know that the town often, we have a monthly coordination meeting with DPW, and those kind of issues often come up. My thought, and Chuck will correct me as usual if I'm wrong, is to connect with DPW. Sounds like you have reached out to somebody in the town
I've been
already.
to the highway department for like 2 years about it.
The state or the town?
The town, but they keep saying that the state has to come in with the mosquito control, but it's all connected to that one
But
area.
if we can move on tonight, that's the remedy you should seek rather than this project.
But this project is connected to all of this is my point, is that where we're talking about the runoff water directly drains into that.
And the stormwater management plan will address where the water goes and how much.
But it's not gonna. What's your address again?
It's 911 Main Street, and that's my question is, it's obviously if it comes into that pool, if the study stops here, but that water goes further than what the study is done, is my question.
And this is why we need an assessment on the entire community and not just the abutters.
Right, but the plan will say what water is going where, and it will be evident if there's more water going in that direction.
That'd be my question.
It won't go any further than say, if there's more water when it does. But we'll be able to look at that, and more importantly, the third party reviewer will look at it and really tell you what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I one quick question. Actually, I'd love to say, Alan Kaczynski, Duck Road, 23 Duck Road. So Lori covered what I want to talk about for sure. So I did walk it. I just heard about this 2 days ago. So I did walk it. So the question for you guys, the blue and the pink ribbons, what does each represent? I was trying to get a feel for the parameters of this project.
Do you gents want to answer that?
I can certainly jump in on that. So the blue flags that you would have seen tied in the field, those are my wetland flags. So when we flag out wetlands in the field, we use blue tape and we hang them right at the boundary. In preparation for the site walk today, it's usually the town of Reading's policy to have the various buffer zones staked out in the field to help us review. When we're on the site walk, we can see exactly where that 25-foot no disturb is, exactly where the 100-foot buffer zone goes to. So the blue flags are where the actual wetlands are located, and then you'd see pink flags on stakes that demarcate the various buffer zones.
Okay. Just a quick comment. So years back, I had a tree. I wetlands behind me, and I called the committee, and you guys all came down. Not you guys, I think it was before most of you. And this tree is about a 45-degree angle. I was nervous it was going to fall. So they came down and they said, you can't take it down. So I abided. I live in fear of that tree falling in my house, granted. But the same distance away is this project. And maybe you can just explain to me how, and I'm sure it's just the law, maybe there's exemptions for a profit daycare. but we're planting a for-profit daycare in the middle of a wetlands and residential area. That's the same distance from a tree I wasn't allowed to take down. Are they exempt from, you know what I mean? I'm confused on how this is allowed, but I couldn't even take a tree down.
So you want to actually take that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at 23 Duck Road right now and yeah, so we reworked our tree policy, so that might be your understanding from a while ago. So you might submit to the commission again. And the other part of your question, will this affect your site? So stormwater, they are required to either improve or maintain the existing conditions.
I guess that's not what I'm asking though. What allows a structure to be built in a wetlands in the middle of a residential area? Do they have some sort of exemption that allows that?
So the wetland, and you can correct me again as usual, the Wetland Protection Act has all kinds of regulations about what can be done to alter the wetlands. In any sense, a structure is just one kind of alteration. And that's where the setbacks come in. The first 25 is no disturb at all. The next 10 is no structure. So what this plan has been designed to accomplish is to put the building of the right size onto the site in a way that it complies with the state and the Reading wetland protection rules.
So where it's being built it's not being built on wetlands.
No, it's being built in the buffer zone. So the wetlands is at the bottom of the hill, and then we cast 100-foot jurisdictional shadow on the dry area. But that 100 feet in front of the wetland is an area where the applicant needs to prove beyond ponderance of credible evidence that they're not altering the wetland with what they're proposing. And then if that's the case under the Wetlands Protection Act, then the commission, so we call that, they've met the standards and they of each area, so the wetlands. And so they haven't caused alteration. So under the town's bylaw, we've made that a little bit tougher. So not in reality, but concept wise, the Wetlands Protection Act would let you build if you could prove that you're not altering it right on the edge of a wetland. But the town has said, well, we want to be a little bit tougher. So we're going to push that building point 35 feet away from the edge of the wetland, and no one can build any closer unless, you know, there's certain requirements. But for developers, it's extremely hard. And so this developer is not even trying to get any closer than 35 feet. So the commission is looking at trees and the impact of trees and habitat, which would, the alteration would move into the wetland area and alter certain things, and the stormwater with the stormwater runoff, things like that. But all this activity is happening on dry ground, but ground that did through sheet flow and water courses feed the wetland. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at. No one's dropping this project in a wet area. As a matter of fact, it's several feet above the wetland. I don't know what it exactly, 10, 15, something like that.
And then the last question is they talked about some tree plantings. When we talk about, I guess we're taking some trees down, obviously, and replacing it with some trees. Are we talking about like trees that are, like, what are we talking about? Because I don't know. You guys talked about.
So there's a tree plan online that shows the trees they're cutting down pretty well. I suggest you go look at that on the Conservation Division page, or call me and I'll help you find that page or send it to you. But they've marked them all in red, and they're mature trees. These trees are coming down because they need to do their project. But the town and the Conservation Commission has a tree policy. They have to meet that tree policy. That was one of my questions, how they're going to do it. Conservation doesn't get into visual shading. I've heard that come up a lot in the planning board. I'm not sending you over there with a specific question, but we don't deal with visual shading and how these projects affect the neighbors. Sometimes you can look at that, in town's bylaws, like how will this will affect abutting property. We don't have that in our wetlands bylaw.
Okay, can I ask one more question?
One more.
One more. So this is the Chuck.
Sure.
How do you decide, like, that's the dry area and that's the wet area? Like, is there a demarcation line, like an end zone line? I mean, isn't it all kind of commingled?
Great question.
You did.
Yeah, so first,
After a rainy winter versus a dry winter and.
yeah, so hopefully you understand it a little bit more, and Andrew, please jump in if I've missed something, but wetland is not just the wet area. It's the wet area and a little bit of area in front of it, and that can vary depending on the ground and the elevations that are near it. So the wetland scientist from the applicant will go out there and he'll what we call delineate the wetland by looking at the trees and to find out if they're more likely than not to be trees that would be found in a wetland or in a dry area. So he's going to classify all the trees, all the shrubs, and the herbaceous material on both sides of a line. And how he starts and how he finishes is not really relevant for this question, but at the end of the day, he is actually going to, or he or she, or the wetland scientist, is going to separate the wet areas from the dry areas through vegetation, hydrology, and soils. The soils have distinct markings that don't change overnight or over the course of a couple of years. So it's called a gray soil or a depleted soil, and that's from the flushing of water going up and down and draining the minerals out of that soil, and it becomes gray. So not only will they evaluate the trees in this area, the shrubs and the herbaceous material, look at hydrology within the first 12 inches and the soils. And so with all that, by doing, well, it's augers, but they do have to do a couple test pits. So it's pretty scientific. That's why they're called wetland scientists, because at the end of the day, they're going to present this to the Conservation Commission. Now, they cannot certify those wetland lines. That's up to the Conservation Commission. And one of the questions here tonight is, and I think it was brought up, do we agree with the wetland line, or is that something that needs to be reviewed? It's the Conservation Commission that certifies the wetland line and agrees with it so they can move on with their project. Again, this is a site that has a pool next to an elevated area. So it's not as tough to figure out where the line is based on a relatively flat area and in the middle of the woods.
Okay.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Aren't you glad you asked that last question?
Yes, I am.
That's the rule book.
Can I have it?
Sure.
Let me make sure.
Al and I will study tonight.
Get it.
I'm gonna read that tonight.
Okay, so did you want me to come back?
Yeah. I gotta-
Moving on.
So I'm just going to continue. So I was just wondering if you could give us a calculation of the existing pervious area and the proposed pervious area, and the same with the impervious area. I already asked you about the turf and the vernal pool, and I was wondering if, since this school is going to clean up this area, if that cleanup is in the operation and maintenance plan, and is there easy access down into the wetland and they're not going over retaining walls? So it can happen on a regular basis if things needed to be cleaned up. Snow storage. I didn't hear anyone talk about snow storage. What's happening with snow storage? That might be something you take up right now. The rest of it, more or less, I'd read when you submit the information.
Sorry, do you want feedback?
I want to know how
or-
you're handling snow storage. Is there an area that you're proposing to store the snow, or is it be taken off site?
So we would basically store it in a few of the open space areas around the parking areas. No snow storage would be kind of stored in any of the 25 or 35. During the winter, the play areas typically aren't used, so snow can kind of be pushed and kind of held on the play areas. Below certain temperatures, the children won't be outside. But the intent is any snow that could not be stored on site safely, it would be taken off by a private hauler.
So that's documented in the plan. I know it's not documented on the plan, so you have to mark off the snow storage area and where you're gonna put them and the children's play area. If those children's play area have under drains, then that is, increases my concern about what's getting into the wetland. So hope you think about that. So mark those snow areas and get it on the O&M plan, and that would be great, and I appreciate that.
Aren't the play areas fenced?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering the same thing too, but
Correct. Play areas are fenced, but there are gates to get in and out of the play areas. We'll get into it really heavily at the planning board, but they are, the gates are locked from the outside, they open from the inside, they have knock boxes for emergency crews, but keep things simple. I'm sure it's getting late. You probably don't want to keep looking at Andrew and I on a screen, but we'll definitely come to the next meeting with an O&M. We'll be there in person too. The next time we're in front of the commission, but we'll show the snow storage areas. We'll ensure we call out clearly kind of some of the access and document that, down for any of the cleaning operation as well.
Okay, last question, but I wanted to also ask, I'd like to get have the commission send me any additional questions and I'll send those off to you. Is that okay? That didn't come up at tonight's meeting? Okay.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it. I mean, even if there's any kind of comments that the commission wants to reiterate in writing, it makes it really easy for us to be able to respond in similar format to peer review. So that would be great.
Did you meet our tree policy bylaw for all the trees that are being cut down in the jurisdictional area? Were you able to either replace them or you have some other mitigation in mind? You have to replace them within the jurisdictional area.
They're all replaced. Yep, they're all replaced. They're on the removal plan, the red X's highlight trees in the jurisdictional area, and then on the planting plan, we show red circles to make it really clear the ones that meet your bylaw.
Okay. I'll have.
Okay.
One more thing. I'm noticing that your dumpster location is not right up against the wetland line. And I like that, but I don't know that the neighbors are gonna like that. But so often the dumpster is put as close to the wetland as possible. So thank
Many
you.
suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then before we move to continuance, let's go over the list of things that we're looking for next time.
Okay, so I have dark sky compliant light and temperature values, update the planting plan, update the O&M plan. And let's see, model the wetland for the expected loss of volume and update the erosion control, and then review the vernal pool and the habitat area and show where the snow storage is, provide calculations on impervious show the access for the cleanup area down in the wetland beyond the retaining wall. You were going to update the planting plan with true natives, and I just wanted to make sure that you knew. Okay.
Start on the shading plan.
Oh, I think we were gonna look at you were just gonna submit the architecturals. Why don't you just submit the architecturals to the conservation commission also, and we can start with that. I just wanted to make sure the commission did ask for a third-party review on the stormwater. That is going to be something that we'll get an estimate on, and we'll wait for that review until we're provided a check for that amount from the applicant. I just want
to no, Chuck did a nice, gave us a heads up. We love the idea of working with the peer reviewer, so we're happy to see it.
Are there any other takeaways that you have that Chuck didn't cover to make sure we're all on the same page?
Is that directed towards us?
Yeah. That's what I'm looking at.
No, I think for us, we know that these aren't one night hearings, so we appreciate the feedback, the comments from both the commission and the public.
So then can you ask for continuance, please?
Oh, yeah. and then
Yes.
The next
What,
meeting.
I guess, yeah, I was gonna say is, I'm assuming, even the best peer reviewers need a couple weeks to review a plan. Is there a meeting in maybe is there a meeting in later April or early May? I don't want to say your next meeting and we know the peer review is not gonna be done anyways.
Understand, I agree.
Sure, even, so it's April 23rd or May 14th.
Is the board relatively full the 23rd?
No, we have
I think
space.
the applicant would like to do the end of the month, but I do have a feeling just with the peer reviewer, it'll probably take a week to get them and them a couple weeks to get it, so we probably will end up in
So why
May.
don't we shoot for the 23rd, and if things don't fall, then we can take an additional continuance.
Perfect. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, on that note, can I have a motion to continue to April 23rd?
I move to continue this hearing till April 23rd.
Walter Talbot seconds it, and Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tim?
Not trying to pressure you, Tim, but it's time to vote.
Leon, you have.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay. Thank you, gents.
Oh, he's on.
Oh, Tim, you care to vote on the motion to continue?
Yeah, Tim Michelle in favor.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, gents. Thank you, everybody in the room.
Everyone on the 23rd.
Yeah, or at least many of you on the 23rd.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
You prefer essay questions or not?
I have an essay guy. Yeah. A little long-winded.
In other words, you can bullshit.
Yeah, yeah. Also kind of gift of the Irish.
So you can either, like, the commission search is on the website.
Go on the website. That's kind of what. Good comment.
Yes.
I guess.
Give me a call.
Okay, how do I do that? Can you give me,
Can I get a card?
awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Thank you later.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you all.
Rejected.
We're still on. Go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Where did Chuck go?
I think we've taken a short break.
Yeah. Finished. Recording.
Ooh, that's a lot fewer people.
Yeah, this was the wrong, yeah, this is, and it wasn't even planned, it was, Oh, you can't close the door because it's an open.
Please don't close.
Thank you.
Please don't close the door.
Yeah.
We're gonna melt.
Are we back on? Yes.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, next hearing is 695 Pearl Street.
Yeah.
Anybody here for that?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to review this or not.
So we don't have to get into it again, I don't think. At this point, our purpose is to review bid that have been submitted and to decide whether or not to go forward with it. I saw one from LEC. That's the only one we have to review.
It's the only one we have, and I didn't receive one from DeRosa, and Hancock was declined because they're already in town doing something.
Okay. So did everybody have a chance to review it? I know it came fairly late in the day.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
In section 1.2, paragraph 2, If revisions to the delineation are recommended, LEC will place new flags in the field for the project engineer and provide a sketch. That sounds like we're hiring them to delineate the wetland instead of just comment on whether the line is accurate or not.
So I'll comment on that and then Chuck can, as usual, correct? So in the past, when they've done it, they have sometimes done their own flag and then we've gone out and reviewed the difference and then we have a determination and which one is more accurate. So I can see your view of it and that perspective. Having said that, maybe Chuck can put some professional light on that.
The way I'm looking at it is it gives the applicant an opportunity to delineate a very conservative or possibly under conservative line. And then now the burden's on us in a way, more than just saying, no, we don't believe that line is accurate. But it gives them kind of a chance to say, well, we'll see if the town's third party will catch it and we'll see what they give us. What, did I explain that clearly?
Yeah, I want to read the section. Could you just note that section again?
1.2.
Yeah.
It just seems like the burden would be on us to,
Well, in the end, the burden is on us to certify the.
well, the burden's on them to delineate it correctly. It's up to us to say whether we agree with it or not. We don't have to tell them you're X number of feet too short over here or adjust this line.
Yeah, we either approve or don't approve.
Right. We don't have to counter with, no, this is what.
So I read that as if flags are missing, they'll walk away, tell the applicant to rehang the flags and tell them when it's finished, and they'll go back out and continue. So they're going to the site twice, so they want to be paid a second time.
Well, this says that they'll put wetland flags.
Wait a minute, you pointed at the, I was up here.
Right here.
Okay.
Paragraph there.
Oops, somebody left their water bottle.
He'll be back.
So if they disagree with the line, they'll place new flags in the field to be picked up by the applicant's engineer and added to the A&R plan. I guess we would go out in the field and review it and then approve it at the meeting. And then it would be added to the plan. It seems like those two steps would need to happen also.
Okay, all right, if that's how we'll do it, then that makes sense.
I think they did this, were you around for, what was that one? No, not Small Lane, the one right across from the veterinarian hospital. They did that, and they did a very similar thing with making a sketch, but requiring the applicant to pick up their flags, like they're not doing that survey work.
Right, they're not doing the survey, but they're doing the delineation.
Yeah, they're going to, don't agree with the flag, they'll move it up or down. And so that's happened with LEC.
But they won't actually move the other companies.
No, they won't move the flag.
They'll have their own.
I'd like to review that line first before we decide whether it's gonna get surveyed in.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
I'd almost prefer the applicant to figure out where the line is themselves and we approve it or not, if LEC gives us a sense of where that is.
So your process would be LEC comes up with differences, the original delineator would look at that, accept it or not. They would update the flags and then we would decide on it.
The original delineator usually doesn't get too involved, makes a comment, but it's up to the commission to say we agree or we don't agree.
I think we would just say we don't agree with this line, and they can go back and take another look at it, or they can.
Oh, I
try
see
and
what you're saying.
Right, try and overcome the burden.
So I see now, yes. So you want LEC just to say, we don't agree and redelineate it and then have LEC go back out and check it again? I think this way, the applicants made their decision on the line. LEC, let's say they move a flag. My understanding is that the commission would review that probably at a meeting and say, oh, flag 5A moved up gradient 2 feet. Is, does everyone agree on that? Yes or no? And we want both to go back out and both wetland scientists to go back out and talk about this. I don't think 2 feet is gonna matter
Depending on.
in a lot of these flags. There's only one section that really is going to
Yeah,
matter.
it's always whatever the closest one is, and that's where you.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is, it's the job of the applicant to delineate the wetland. It's not our job as commissioners to also delineate a wetland.
No, but you know that wetlands is flagged right now.
Yes.
And they're just gonna review each flag and move it appropriately.
They may not even, I guess I'm asking is, why do they need to move it? Why?
They may not.
They're not.
They can just come back to us and they can say, we don't agree with their line. We think it's not restrictive enough. We think it's that if you go past that line, you're still in a wetland, and they haven't delineated the wetland appropriately. Without us, without the burden, without us having.
So what's the advantage of that?
Yeah, I haven't seen that happen. I think it's hard to just send them out to say, make it more conservative.
No, I don't think it's just to say make it more conservative. It's if our third-party reviewer disagrees with the line, all we have to do as a commission is say, no, we don't agree with that line.
But it's easier for the applicant to know there's like 1 or 2 flags, and then they could just address those flags, and sometimes they don't even matter, and.
Right, so in the end, for the sake of time and working together, I think it's more effective if LEC, in this case, moves it.
So I would say that the way they're doing it is basically protocol that I understand and know. Have you seen it done the way you're talking about?
I've seen other commissions that'll just vote it up or down.
Yeah, I think with asking for third party review, this commission would have voted it down. So.
That's why we're asking.
That's why you're asking.
Right.
So how do we get back to them? Plus, the applicant said that they're okay with having it reviewed. So.
And ultimately, who pays for this?
The applicant.
Well, then, all right, if they're paying for the information, they should get the information.
Okay, yeah, the applicant has been told and has been, the only estimate we got has been shared with the applicant.
Okay. I withdraw my comment.
Oh, it was a good comment.
No, I like it, but yeah, okay.
So this is for $5,200. Correct?
Yep, for $5,200 and.
Paid for by the applicant, not the commission.
And it covers the land, isolated, vegetated wetland.
And this is 695 Pearl Street we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, in the land, isolated land subject to flooding. Both those things are part of this. And I think that it would be, I've been told that, they're ready to go. I mean, this is the time you should go with some of this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. So just wait a minute for our missing commissioner to return.
We have enough.
Yeah, we've got a quorum.
Okay. So then.
All right, I move to approve the scope submitted by LEC for the amount of $5,200.
Yeah.
I second.
Tim, want to vote?
Michelle in favor.
Tony Rodolakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Okay. Thank you. That's it for hearings. Now, old new business. The first piece is a minor plan change for 246, 248 Walnut Street.
Yeah. Let me get those guys on. I have, been slacking over here.
Is that who Ian Ainsley is?
Ian, yeah, we met Ian out there.
I was trying to think.
Okay, Ian, you're on.
MBTA person.
Is anyone else with you, Ian?
No, it's just me for tonight.
Okay, so can you share your screen if that's what you're gonna do, or?
That is what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so to recap at the last hearing, there was some talk of trees on the property that would need to be.
Ian?
Yep,
Can I intrude for a moment? Can you, for the record, introduce yourself?
sure.
Thank you.
My name is Ian Ainsley. I'm an engineer from Meister Brem. I am representing the applicant, Stella Construction. This is a proposed modification to a previously approved order of conditions. We are asking for a minor plan modification. The plan modification, just to recap, is for a berm and fence to be installed along the property line here to screen the 2-lot subdivision that we were permitted for from the 93-95 interchange over here. At the previous meeting, the commission had some concerns about trees that would need to be removed. We've shown the trees on the property on the updated plan, and we also took a site walk this past Monday, where I think it became evident that the number of trees that were of concern was, I think, less than what the commission was thinking at the hearing. I think we determined while we were out there that there's one tree, about a 6-inch diameter tree, that was kind of right at this property line kind of turning point. One additional tree that would need to be removed in order to facilitate this berm. We did change the plan to reduce the height of the berm from 3 feet to 2 feet. And the reason we did that is because when you're putting on side slopes to the berm, when you take away a foot, that really narrows up the berm as a whole, because now you're taking away 3 feet of slope on each side. We had shown a fence all the way up to the 25-foot Z&V previously. We've pulled that back to the 35-foot no build. And then what we determined while we were on the site walk was that the fence really isn't needed this far down past the house. So we've agreed to end the fence at the 100-foot inner riparian zone for the riverfront, kind of right behind where the house is. And I think the only other item we did was we added a detail to the plan that the commission was looking for to show the dimensions of that berm, what it would be made of, and how it would be stabilized. So that's kind of a gist of what we've done since the previous hearing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Didn't you ask for some detail about the driveway?
How the berm would impact the driveway.
Yeah, so what we did for that, and I actually show it on the plan, thank you for mentioning that. The driveway was pretty close to that berm.
Yes.
And we really did not need the turnout to be that large. So we pulled the turnout of the driveway in. Basically, it used to be more down here. We pulled it more further away from the berm. So that turnout is still there, but now it's got some distance between the berm and the driveway.
Okay, and we did say, although we didn't expect you to need it, but on the fence only portion of it, if there were any trees, you would avoid them.
Yes, and that we're happy to do that with the fence. Yeah.
It seemed like it's gonna be okay, but the condition would still be avoiding the trees if you have to bend it around, please.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from commissioners?
When we were out in the field, we talked about ending the fence at the stone wall. And you say you were agreeing to end it at the 100-foot line, and I'm not sure where the stone wall is compared to the 100-foot.
Yeah, the interesting part is I almost wonder if that stone wall was put there to mark the line because it's right on the 100-foot line. And we figured that out when we were marking off the field before the site walk. So to clarify, we will be ending it at that stone wall, which is also the 100-foot line.
Thank you.
That's it.
So the applicant is taking down an additional tree, and we have a tree policy, and so it needs to be accounted for within the mitigation. And I'll just let you know that I think personally, because we did look at the bridge, that we're getting a lot of mitigation, and we're getting this bridge over at Sturgis Park. So I think that even though we're adding a tree, we're getting sufficient mitigation for this whole project, so we don't need to increase or ask for an additional amount of money.
I agree.
Yeah, there was some discussion in the field about whether all the trees they originally marked to take down would actually need to come down, so we might be able to swap tree for tree.
Okay.
Okay.
But I think that's to be determined.
Yeah, I think once they're digging, once they're in the ground and they kind of see exactly where the house is going to go, how far away it is from the trees, within the limit of work, they can decide, okay, does this tree really need to go or not?
As long as they don't make a on the spot decision and do it without asking.
Yeah, well, as long as they don't go outside the limit of work and take out trees that weren't permitted to be taken out.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the commission or Chuck? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the amended plan?
I move to approve the amended plan.
Walter Talbot seconds it. Walter Talbot approves.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Larry Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. The next is the 1503 Main Street Certificate of Compliance Accommodation Request. You know what I'm talking about? So 1503 is one of the houses down the bottom of the hill, almost to North Reading on the right-hand side below Matera Cabin. And that actually was underway when I first got on the commission. So they did not have a certificate of compliance yet. I think the only reason was because they hadn't yet placed the stone markers that were required alongside the side of the property by the wetland area. So I'm gonna stop talking now and let you talk through more of the accommodation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so 1503 Main Street, it was a 2-lot development, and 1503 was finished off a lot sooner than 1505.
That's the further back
And there was
one.
a lot of problems at 1505. But I had always thought that 1503 could get their certificate of compliance at any time, they're two separate orders of conditions. But they held back because there was some confusion with the developer, and that whole developer situation was very confusing, and still is. So Mr. Garrett had been, Garrett Alpha. He had been dragging his feet to do this because he would incur a lot of costs himself instead of the developer who, built 2 houses and sold them for X and, had that as part of his, budget. So there's no way to pay the owners there for doing this work, but they need to get a certificate of compliance so they can move on with their lives. If they're doing anything like refinancing or selling, this will be needed. So a lot of people have talked to the Alpha Cobb family, and it seemed like an accommodation needed to be made. So I had talked to Garrett, And I suggested, because such a long line that needed to be identified as the 25-foot, to do, instead of every 40 feet, to do granite bounds or concrete bounds every 80 feet. And along the 25-foot border, which is what we typically ask for. He would have to work out with his neighbor about how that bound at the property line works out. So we did this for this neighbor also, then it would be 80 feet off that bound. So he promised to put one at each end of his property line and then 80 feet intervals in between, and whatever that number comes to. And he wants to waive the requirements for the as-built plan because we have a lot of plans, and he felt like, and I suggested that, you know, the commission should review this, that the commission knows this property well. This is the 1503 project light, the light one, the easy one. They own a lot of land. They've only developed a little bit. There's a lot of grass, but it's not out to the edges. So, and it generally looks like the plan. Grass has been established. So to waive the as-built plan requirement and to take the approved plan out to the site and make your own determination. And might be three things. Waive the requirement for the qualified professional engineer to state that their order of condition is in compliance with the work. And so he also thought, and I agreed, that it was worth asking if the Conservation Commission would just review the site and make those determinations for themselves. Again, I don't think this would come up, and maybe that should be part of any vote, that because that these applicants have had to pay for this, you know, these costs themselves, that these waivers should happen. So, and once these waivers happen, the engineer, not the engineer, but the developer is eligible to receive that money back according to our town council.
Has to happen on both front and back properties, right?
No, we're only talking, this is only the back property.
Okay, so once the waiver happens on this property, whatever the money is that we're holding from the developer on this property gets to be returned.
Yeah.
And the front property, it's a separate pool of money and a separate issue.
If they reach out and ask for it.
Okay.
How much do one of those pylons cost?
So I did ask a surveyor recently, and it might be, you know, accurate. He was from Western Mass, but he said $100 for granite.
And that includes the labor or the effort to correctly
Does
process
not.
material. Can we decide where that goes? For free?
What's that, what are you saying?
Can we decide the exact position for the granite?
No, he's gonna have to get that resurveyed. That's gonna cost. It was, so somehow he decided that the wetland flags that were out there were markings from hunters, and he went out and took them all down because he didn't want anyone hunting on his property.
Oh, oops.
So there's no way to, you know, back into that line.
Gotcha.
Although, you know, a surveyor could use the plan to, you know, we don't need a wetland scientist, we just need someone surveying.
Right.
When you're saying the survey could use the plan, the surveyor could go, say, off the corner of the house and go out
Yeah,
however
there's-
many feet
there's
it's
a
supposed to
approved-
be?
There's an approved plan, they could use that to find.
So if the wetland flags have been surveyed, they
Yeah.
can use.
Where those are.
They can use the plan just to go and. Yeah.
Okay.
And find them, yeah.
Trying to reestablish, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how it would happen.
And there's no recourse to get this from the developer? They're.
Well, it's been 5-7 years.
Longer than that, because it started before I got on the commission.
Yeah, it's been a long time. No, the developer dug his feet in. It was a good situation and it turned bad. Just not really listening to the commission and just doing haphazard environmental work.
He always knew best.
Yeah.
Is this
trying-
developer still working town?
As I haven't heard of him.
He hasn't
down.
come in front of the Conservation Commission since.
How much is being held back?
$5,000 on both properties.
And he's not willing to do something to get the $5,000? Whatever.
No, he's been pushed pretty far and.
Yeah, we
Not
were
going any
pretty
further.
tough on him and, you know, we weren't tough on him. We were steadfast with our requirements. And we just, nothing ever happened. And this, Garrett Alpha Cobb wants to get going. He has another project he wants to do. And, you know, wants to just finish fast.
So explain that again, I'm sorry, we released the money and it goes back to.
No, we're not, this
I
is
know.
not about releasing the money at all. That developer would need to be told, and that's not the responsibility of the Conservation Commission, that we're all set.
So
So
our
the money has nothing to do
responsibility
this, plus a request has to come in from him to release the money, and the commission has to review it.
Yeah, so we have to prove the certificate of compliance, which has to happen first.
Right.
Before the bond money can go
Yeah.
back.
And the money can't be used,
And, sorry, go ahead.
that money cannot be used unless it's the developer that chooses to use it
Yeah.
for this purpose, and we can't, so we went through town council with this, so we can't give him the money to do this. So the developer would have to do this out of his own pocket and then be reimbursed when we give him back the bond money.
Can this be dealt with as two separate transactions? One is let the homeowners, who are obviously good people or doing the right thing, be absolved and just hold back the money still until the guy comes and puts the markers in.
We can do that, and that's what we have been doing, but the homeowner who lives there wants to move on with his life, and he's putting in an application for a certificate of compliance, and he wants to know if he needs to put those requirements in it or not.
The NOI runs with the property, not with the applicant, not with the person
Yeah, but can we,
who filed it originally.
can we approve without having markers in? And just say, hey, you're good?
We always like
Markers
to
aren't
have
a-
markers.
The markers aren't a huge expense, I mean,
Especially when we reduce the number.
I think this reduction that we've done has saved him, it's gone from, thousands to,
Yeah, he was expecting $8,000 or $9,000 worth of costs, and it's much less now.
yeah, you had a conversation with me, yeah.
Yeah, because he got bad information from the wrong person.
I mean, essentially, he gave him those waivers and he bought $800 worth of granite, that's the granite, I don't know what the other ones cost. And then had a construction company or a high school kid put them in, or he put them in. His only other cost is having it surveyed in place.
Okay. Is he willing to pay for it?
He loves this.
This is what he's asking.
Yeah, he's asking us to do this.
So, but he's willing to pay for the survey?
Yeah.
Oh,
In order to get his certificate of
Yeah,
compliance.
he wants to be completed on the project final.
I get it. Okay, so it is two
Fully
separate.
aware of this. It was developed with him in the room. Like, it was almost his idea.
So it is two separate transactions.
It is. No one's asking for them to return the money, but I just wanted the commission to know when that comes in, you can review it, you can look for problems, but can't give it to anyone else except the developer.
So all he'd be left with is having you install the granite markers.
Pay for the survey to find out where they go,
And then
install the
install.
granite markers, and then we would issue the certificate of compliance.
All right.
Site
And
visit.
then as mitigation, he's gonna keep trying to keep the knotweed and the buckthorn under control.
Yeah, so he's giving back a little bit, all hand pulling.
All
I
right,
think it's a good idea.
I move to accept the proposal.
Me too.
Yeah, what'd you say?
I move to accept the proposal.
Oh, I second it. And I vote in favor.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Whatever lot is in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor. 12. You can Garrett, wherever you are. Okay, next is the Conservation DPW meeting on April 1st. I assume, what was that? Handshake for?
I can be there.
I'm pretty sure I can be. But at least we'll be covered either way. Administrative report, you have any more talking you'd like to do?
Good.
Okay. Minutes for approval. First one is 122.
I think Tony was gonna write that.
I am not even one electron closer to getting those completed than I was 2 weeks ago.
But let's stop here for a second. Martha, do you have any news?
I do have news.
You'd be so happy, maybe.
I have a W-9 form filled out by an applicant who would like to be our minutes doer from now on.
Would she be willing to do Tony's minutes? Tony, did you do any of that? Would that be okay?
Yeah, they're about 85% done.
Oh, my God, don't keep them. Do you wanna, what do you wanna do?
I'll pass them off because there's a couple of names of people that spoke and presented, and I'd have to go back and listen to the meeting.
So would you be willing to
Yes.
share with the new minutes taker
Yes.
what you've done so
Welcome.
far? And then
Yes.
she can follow up on you?
I think we should consider that Tony should pay her directly out of his own pocket.
Happy to.
So I guess the first question is, do we want to approve the note taker?
Great.
Have a motion to approve the note taker. That should be an easy one.
Minutes.
Minutes writer.
sorry. Yeah, the minutes taker, minutes writer. Transcription.
Sorry, what's the?
So,
Transcribe.
well, hold on, let's get it right. Because the accounting always asks. So we wanna make a motion and we wanna say the fund, and the fund is the wetland fee fund, the state wetland fee fund. So that's what we're using.
Right.
So you'd like to make a motion to accept, or hire or, you know,
Right.
work out, you figure that out.
All right, I
and
move to
use
use
that
the
fund.
state wetland fee fund to hire a minute taker and
Retain.
producer, writer
At $250 per set of minutes.
at $250 per set of
That's
minutes.
what we offered. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second. Walter Talbot seconds.
And are you in favor?
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Rambo is definitely in favor.
All right, great.
And should I explain any possible conflict of interest at this point?
If you want to.
Okay, I just want to say that it's my daughter-in-law who has volunteered to do the minutes for us. I didn't want to ask her until she finished her thesis for her PhD, her dissertation, but she has now finished it and has a little time to be able to do our
Minute
minutes.
taking?
She can do our minute taking.
Okay.
Is it a doctorate in?
So
No, it's
then-
not a doctorate in minute.
Then we'll have to wait for January 22nd, which brings us to February 12th. That's been circulated. I did get some comments back and I've updated it. And we have a motion to approve the February 12th minutes.
Give me a second. Okay. February 12th, I'm happy with that.
Me too.
So can somebody
Okay.
make a motion?
I move that we approve the February 12th minutes.
Walter Talbot seconds it. and Walter Talbot's in favor.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Brian Bow in favor. What, remember her name? Okay, the next one,
Taking notes.
that's fine. The next one is.
Who
February-
seconded?
February 26th.
February
Was that
I
26th.
seconded.
Walt second.
February 26th.
I want my name.
Everybody read it. You must have, I got comments back. I've updated it, at least distributed it. Can somebody make a motion to accept February 26th?
I move to accept the February 26th minutes as amended.
Walter Talbot seconds. Walter Talbot is in favor.
Tim Michelle in favor.
Tony Rodalakis in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
You're approaching my.
Brian Bow is in favor.
I'm usually in bed
Okay.
by 10 o'clock.
So the next one is March 12th. Martha sent that out.
I haven't read them.
Okay,
She got a gold star
You
from
did a
me.
good job catching up though.
okay,
How about
so
Tim? Did Tim read them?
Tim, did you read March 12th?
I have not yet, no.
Okay.
we'll
We'll
so we
do vote
put that,
next week.
Next week. Okay.
sounds good. We have caught up.
Okay. Very productive.
All right, anything anybody wants to say before?
Yeah,
we-
I've got a question. Does the town have, I emailed this to you earlier today, Chuck, I don't know if you saw it. I'm wondering if the town has a map. Sorry. Of conservation lands and abutting properties available to use as a guide of possible properties to acquire easements or purchase.
So I will say that quite a few years ago, I asked for that kind of information. At this point, I don't remember why I asked for it, but I got a very large sloppy database with lots of replication and what have you. I spent some time starting through it to clean it up and then put it aside.
Doesn't seem that hard.
And it's, I know there's a section in the open space plan.
There is?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's what I was gonna say, but sorry, I got busy and I forgot about it.
But there's a table in there for all the open space properties with their owners, cemetery, conservation, whatever. So that'll tell you the pieces of property. It doesn't have the abutters though, right?
No, but it has a list of if they become, well, I'm making this title up, but if they become available, we want to, you know, go for these areas.
Okay.
And that can be updated, you know, by 2027.
Is there a means by which someone, a town employee, a volunteer could be a little bit more proactive with that? And because it seems recently we've had a run on properties adjacent to some very sensitive or at least, you know, valuable areas.
Sure.
And it would have been nice if maybe 5 or 6 years ago or a few years ago, you know, under other circumstances, you approach that person and you say, hey, your property is abutting this particular conservation area. Would you be interested in a conservation easement?
Or a restriction of a piece of it.
Or something, yeah,
donation of a
right.
piece of it, something where.
Right.
So. So we are having 2 interns this summer.
Yeah, we could, that could be something that our town GIS
Okay.
person could do.
That's like a half an hour.
Yeah, so all properties over half an acre that abut conservation land, you know, we develop a list. I think something like that, I think that would probably be sufficient.
What I was gonna say is, so assuming this come through, he'll be creating a searchable database front end, VBA and everything to allow us to take that table that I talked about, which is in a database, and to be able to add fields when it was last visited, whatever. And so we could actually do more with it if we wanted, because the foundation's gonna.
I was thinking more like sending out a letter.
I think we should.
Something simple as starting, you know,
Staying in touch is good, you know, it doesn't have to be,
I think that's great.
you know, every year, but it could be, you know, one letter and then maybe a couple years later. we'll
Yeah,
send
have you
another
thought about it again? Yeah, sounds good. Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
Did you want to discuss anything about the town forest meeting?
Oh, yeah, I asked Walter to update the commission on the town, board. There's some interesting information in that. So do you have that or you want me to grab your email?
Whatever floats your boat.
Oh, getting back into boat floating.
So here's Walter's email.
That's the same one that we got, I presume? Is that the same one that we got?
You
Yes.
copied me and Brian
Yeah.
on? Yeah.
I think the
I'm
frustrating.
the only one who hasn't read it.
Yeah.
It's on a need to know basis.
Delay is crazy, huh?
No, I'm catching 40 winks.
All right, so. Is it?
Mhm.
Has the list of Arbor Day plant species been revised at all?
Nothing,
Yes, yeah, no,
I have no idea.
Brian and I went to a
They-
meeting
They refused to discuss the Arbor Day discussion.
at the town forest meeting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
they just said, we'll talk when we go to the library in April.
Yeah. They insisted on pawpaws. And there were some other trees on their list that I thought were fine, they were natives, and Mike Hannaford had with him a list of 15 trees or so that he can get.
They're
And they-
available on a website that tree wardens around Massachusetts can have access to.
And they can buy them in bundles of 100.
And so the town, so the DPW is buying the trees for this endeavor?
Well, they're buying them from Mike Hannaford's resource. I don't know who's paying for the trees. I didn't ask that question at the meeting.
And are these native species or are these?
No, that list of trees was all very interestingly, included things like metasequoia and, Siberian spruce. But we managed to find one more species that's on that list of trees that is a native species, which was chokecherry. And I looked at the maps and in the tree books, and it does seem to be native to our area. And one of the people in the room looked it up on their phone and said, it's poisonous. And do we really want to plant poisonous trees in the town forest? And Mike Hannaford said, there's lots of chokecherries all over Reading, and it hasn't been a problem.
There's a lot of other poisonous plants growing in the town forest.
So the bottom line is we ended up with 5 species.
Okay.
We did manage to make it more native. We lost on pawpaw. They were adamant. And
Are they on sale?
one of the concerns was the spread of them, and they said one of their members has been maintaining it forever and it hasn't spread. So that one out, but the other ones are okay.
Yeah, so who's that? There's like this
Yeah, Curtis?
Kurt, yeah.
Kurt Hable.
Kurt.
Yeah, he has like a little planting area in his backyard or something like that, because they're always talking about it's work there, or he's.
Right.
And that's what he said. He absolutely insisted that it works there, and the town forest committee all backed him.
And so is there actually a planting plan that shows where these are gonna go and how they're gonna be spaced? Or
Well,
is it-
apparently, it looks like on someday,
March
Mike
27th.
Hannaford and Bill Sullivan will plan to walk the town forest on Thursday, March 27th at 12:30, unconfirmed, to discuss the location of the arbor tree planting. So that's when this is all gonna happen.
So some of us have to be there.
Not on that day.
Why? I mean, I don't think those two should be left to figure it out by themselves. Is it really?
It is tomorrow.
Were people invited to that, or is it just, yeah?
What do you say? You say no?
He's saying no.
Well, you know, Mike. You could go.
Yeah. So what
Nobody jumped.
12:30.
When are they gonna start?
The other thing that's notable is that they're not protecting the saplings at all. That was decided that that's more cost
Yeah.
than needed, so.
Yeah, they
They're
decided,
hoping volume wins the
right, they were
day.
decided they'll lose some.
I hope they lose all the
Yeah,
pawpaws.
that's what we said.
I hope those are the tastiest trees out there.
So the trade-off is they've accepted the loss of some percent, even a big percent. The idea is they can get more the next year, assuming there's actually another event, and it might even cause there to be more diversity, just because different things would be available on Mike's list than perhaps this year.
And then there's no discussion about planting, watering, or maintenance. And I asked that question specifically because I'm trying to leverage the DPW. One of our things, which never got answered, never got asked again,
Right.
was the fact that I wanted to use DPW equipment, if that was gonna become more of a standard ask for me. And one of the things I would like to do is use my own time to fill up the water truck and go out and not only take care of our planting, but the town forest planting too, which I would not mind doing at all.
There was a discussion at that meeting that Brian and I went to, that the day they plant the trees, the water truck is gonna be there full. And they're gonna ask the people who are planting the trees to bring jugs that they fill at the water truck and then pour in the holes as they plant the trees.
But that doesn't cover.
3 times though, right?
Water going forward. So my concern, Chuck, what you said, it depends on where they decide to plant them. For example, I'm thinking up on the path that goes by the benches. I don't know how long a hose there is or anything that runs from the water truck, but that would be difficult to get to.
Yeah, well, anyways, it's, you know, it's going to increase the survivability.
That's right.
Anyways, you know, we're not getting into the particulars. If they allow me to do this, then I would obviously start at our properties first, and if there's time left, I would do theirs.
Okay, is there anything up there that you want to talk about there, Walter?
Not particularly.
Maybe you should talk about.
They don't talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about it.
I am on the CPA study committee, and I've been asked to go to various committees that have to do with open space, so it would include the town forest committee. Their brains for things to put in the CPA study committee report. So I'm gonna contact Bill Sullivan and see if I can get on his agenda for the next town forest committee meeting.
And speaking of Bill Sullivan and contacting him, Brian Bowe it would be great if Brian Bowe contacted Bill Sullivan and we want our dog policy and their dog policy to be more in line. But sometimes it makes sense that all dogs are on leashes. I get it. But maybe we can be more consistent.
We can
in
certainly
more
be
areas.
consistent on the numbers. That's just straightforward.
No one's gonna remember any of this, so they gotta keep that in mind. Okay, so that, I believe, mean to take
work
much time doing
I
that, but
think the point is that the town forest is a place you can have a couple of unleashed dogs. And we're having them leashed everywhere else.
Right, but Chuck's point is to make them overlap more fully than they do now, because we're saying.
3 and they're saying 2.
yeah,
So that's why I said the number, we can make that the same.
okay.
I thought a really nice dog leash sign. The Ward reservation.
That's what we need is more signs.
They had a guest speaker.
But instead of a policy, it was kind of a nice, warm, friendly.
Be a mindful dog walker, I like
All
that.
right,
They had,
Okay. We have to go before.
Send that to Chuck.
well, I'm just concerned about Tim,
Yeah, okay, so,
it's not me.
can I have a motion to adjourn at 9:55?
I move to adjourn at 9:54. 9:55.
I second that.
Walter Talbot's in favor.
Oh,
And Michelle, favor.
everybody in favor, raise your hands.
All right, Tim,
Thank
thanks.
you, Tim.
Yep,
Thank you.
Good to hear from you
good night, everyone.
Good night.
BTC Studio,
and all the ships at sea.
all the ships at sea.
You know that